3, 2, 1, and welcome back to Chasing the Racing, episode 41. And we're back in the studio. It's the second night running. Did a couple of interviews last night, which we've got coming your way shortly. And back from a cracking weekend down in London.
London. Have you ever seen the film Snatch?
Aye, is that Brad Pitt when he's the gypsy?
Oh, honestly, have you not seen it? It's like London, you know. Fish and chips, cup of tea, bad breath, bad food, Mary fucking Poppins, London! Woo!
I tell you what, mate, it's been a while since I've been like sort of city centre London. My God, did I get a shock. Like, it's just, the place is just...
Shite.
Everywhere, no, just mega. Everywhere you look, there's just high-rise cranes getting, like, massive buildings getting built everywhere. It's just such a vast, huge place.
It's surreal.
Do you know?
It actually is surreal.
Where we were, like down by Canary Wharf and all them high-rise buildings. Did you know that Emirates? I didn't even know that existed. That Emirates cable car going over the river. It's like being in a movie, isn't it?
Did you actually go over?
No.
We went. So honestly, Valentine's Day, Michael Rutter treated us all.
Oh,
obviously.
nice.
Oh, it was very romantic. Very romantic. Honestly, we were walking through, and like, all right, we'll go get some bait. And we're standing outside this booth. I'm thinking, all right, we must be going in the I've never been on the underground. Mm-hmm. And I'm just floating around the place thinking, oh, we're getting on the train. And suddenly we're going, why the hell are we going up in the air? You know what I mean? I couldn't believe it. It was actually surreal going over, and it was like, that's terrible. What's the big... Is it the O2 Arena?
Aye.
I going right over the top of that. It was absolutely... East End. No, it was absolutely surreal. So if Michael Rutter is listening to this, thank you very much, Michael. Thank you very much.
Well, I've just put me specs on just because we've got a sponsor for episode 41. So massive thank you to the Merseyside College and University Centre. It's the Northwest's best kept secret. They provide a vast...
and now they're a sponsor. Yes, not anymore.
They provide a vast array of further and higher education courses, including motorsport and motorcycle diplomas and degrees, on a scenic rural campus with a plethora of facilities, including a residential village. The motorsport department compete in a multitude of events across a variety of disciplines on both 2 and 4 wheels, with the students at the heart of it all, gaining real-world experience to greater prepare them for the industry as they progress on to jobs in British Superbikes, World Rally and Formula 1. The only closed road stage rally in the north of England, the Legend Fires Northwest Stages, is taking place from Merseyside College on the 20th and the 21st of March. A student-led motorcycle racing team will be taking on Thundersport GB1's Golden Era Supersport Championships, running lecturers Ryan Garside and Richie Harrison. The campus is located just north of Preston, with many open mornings available throughout the year for any over 16s interested in taking the next step to building a successful career. Plenty of information is available on the college website, which is www.myerscough.ac.uk.
It's a good thing we're putting this on the Twitter.
or search Myerscough College on both Facebook and Instagram. The Motorsport department has its own dedicated Facebook page for anyone wanting to follow our motorsport events. www.facebook.com/Myerscough the Motorsport. I think that is.
Well, thank you very much for sponsoring that. My God, that was I'm glad you were reading out. Honestly, I would have just totally tripped up at the finishing line there. But that sounds. I'm just
thinking. I don't think I read that properly, and I said Merseyside College at the beginning. Sorry, it was Myerscough College.
Myerscough. Well, anyway, it's in the northwest. Here, one of my mates, Josh Watson, he's down in Wales doing a motorsport diploma kind of thing, and all their students end up going to bloody like MotoGP and all sorts, like motorsport engineering.
For people that are interested, in a career in like sort of bike racing or rally or Formula 1
you don't
or whatever.
have to be an idiot like one of us and go actually on the saddle.
It sounds like a great. I don't know much about it, but obviously I'll check out the website, and if anyone listening or has kids or whatever and they're thinking about taking the next step, could be a good.
Well, why don't you do it? Maths is shit. You know what I mean? No one likes maths.
And I see Richie Harrison's obviously involved, who's part of the North Yorkshire Road Racing Supporters Club. So he's involved with the Thundersport side of things. And
bloody hell,
it all sounds interesting. So check it out on Facebook or the website.
Bloody hell. So I was about to say, normally at this point in the show, we turn around and go, well, what's the crack been? We're touching base on that, and obviously we both got invited down to the MCN London X. But it was a long title. Obviously, they sponsored the
Carol
pod,
Nash.
the Carol Nash one.
So-
And obviously it was absolutely great to be invited down, and it was bloody brilliant. And for me, it's absolutely ruined any other event I'm going to go to. We're whipping round on little bikes, caning the absolute shite out of each other and laughing every second going, you know what I mean? And it was just,
I tell you
the
what,
whole thing was surreal.
Like, obviously, I was looking forward to seeing all the racing and stuff, but in my own head, I thought it was going to be a lot more tamer than what it actually was. I was really, really impressed by, I mean, not the speed of, for those that, weren't there or don't know, they have like a mini track right in the middle of
Called
the hall.
the Michelin Thunderdrome.
It was the main attraction of the whole show, and had the TT stars all racing out for there was like heats and then a final, but there was like basically like a big berm, which is a big raised bit of track.
Homemade, mind. This is totally homemade.
And they had a rule where whoever was leading had to go use an inside line, which was slower. So therefore, it made perfect racing because whoever was leading then got past the following lap.
Imagine someone saying that to you. It's like that ride through penalty they've got introduced in the MotoGP. Hey, we're gonna malfunction. Mike stands falling over, but it's like the ride through penalty situation. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But you haven't done anything wrong. It's like when you're in the front, and do you know how hard that is to switch off?
Oh,
you know what I mean? You're like, I'm in front. You just want to go, and you're like, there's me, legitimately hanging around with the biggest names in road racing, and I'm like, I don't even deserve to be here, and I'm like, I've just duffed, absolutely made Peter Hickman, Michael Rutter, John McGuinness, my bitch. You know what I mean? I've just dropped the clutch off the line and just went like. I'll tell you who was hellish. Now, the privateer section of it all was me, Craig Neve, who is an absolute demon on one of those bikes. He looks kind of like a daddy long legs, man. He just kind of looks unbalanced standing in general. But put him on a bike, it's phenomenal. And I'll tell you who was a weapon off the line.
Who's that?
Phil Crow.
He's a big unit, mate, on them little bikes.
He's a mountain man. He's an absolute mountain. Obviously, we talk about him a fair bit on the show. But honestly, Peter Boast, right? Peter Boast provides his bikes, and you do not want to buy that bike second hand. Like, there's Crowy, right? That just literally stretching the cables and just dumped the clutch, and he was an absolute howler off the line, mate. It was phenomenal. He was proper duffing everyone.
Another thing I was really impressed with as well was the standard of actually riding. Obviously, I know all the riders are top lads, all top TT riders, but flat track's a different discipline, and I know yourself, you only had one day of practice, and honestly, mate,
no, John McGuinness, we got 4 laps on speedway. I'm practically a pro. I tell you who is intimidated. One of our fan favourites of the show, Richard Cooper. He's openly slagging me off on Instagram, going, "This is how it's done." I'm going, well, you didn't have a chicane, sweetheart. Step off your high horse there, Richard, and come down to real life. But no, it is absolutely class. The whole thing was absolutely class. But I tell you what, right? Before we move on, I've been trying to think all day. I've been working in Hoyk, the home of Steve Hislop.
Oh, right.
That's where I've been. I tell you what, you ever been to his monument?
That's just by the border, isn't it?
It's amazing. Honestly, you just think it just shows the class of the man. You know what I mean? Who he was, and literally legendary status. What a place! But I tell you what, I didn't have time to go in and say I've seen it before. Working up there quite frequently. So anyway, driving home, thinking I'm late for the podcast. Chris is going to be pissed off. I thought I better start putting a bit of structure into this instead of normally winging it as I normally do. So I've come up with a little game, son. A little game to try now. What's happened to that stand? Before we move on here, what have you done? You've just turned into a darts commentator.
We're having a bit of a malfunction on the stand, so I'll just hold the microphone.
It's a common for most men, so if you can't get it to stand up, that's fine. You know what I mean? We've got pills for that. We can chat consultation. That's fine. But anyway, came up with this little idea. Not really a game as such, because there's so much that got on behind the scene. There was so much crack. Pretty much I'm going to write a little autobiography. And you're going to pick out some chapters, and we're going to go from there. You already look worried, don't you? So, obviously, between between stops, obviously on the way home, when by stops I mean totally driving illegally with me knee, trying to write notes on a post-it, I've come up with some titles here. Now on the YouTube, you'll see it's essentially a Toblerone of shite. So I'm just going to start reading a fair few of these out, and we're going to go from there in no particular order. Let's start off with chapter number 1. James Hillier has coronavirus. That's number 1. This is
all crack from the weekend.
This is all total crack from the weekend, and you've got to pick out 3, and we're going to discuss them.
For the people that aren't watching on YouTube, there's quite a few.
Honestly, they're doubled up, mate. I'm telling you, and you never go wrong by doubling up. I'm telling you, safe. You got to practice safe. So that's number 1. James Hillier has coronavirus. Craig Neve, don't trust. Peter Boast looks like a pirate, but is the nicest guy. It's all a fix. The John and Rutter love affair. Pricks on face. Oh my God, funny as fuck. Dishing out the portions. Surprised. Taylor Mackenzie is not a prick, but his girlfriend stabbed someone. I hope you think... Oh, here we go. So, Rutter on Valentine's Day. Phil Crow, scary but nice. John McGuinness, his son is punching. Smells like a jockstrap. Hillier has no responsibility for the actions in his life, and he listens to the show, so I really hope you pick that one. Hickman cannot just have fun. Captain Kawasaki. Hold on, I can't even read it. He can talk the talk, and he can walk the walk. Side note, Hillier sticker. Don't know why I wrote that. I owe your dad a pint. We owe Hickman £1 million. God, Bennett. Free bar, what can go wrong? And personally, my favourite... Where is it? There it is. Life is not fair. Hickman has a huge pipe.
I think we'll start with that one.
Right, you want to start with that one? Right, hold on. So, okay, we're starting off with the title. That life is not fair. Hickman has a huge pipe. Right, so... There's a road racer kicking around the scene called Pete Hickman. You might have heard of him. I think he's been on this crappy little show before, Very successful, all-round, genuine nice guy. Impossible to hate. He's just such a nice human being. And obviously, spending some close quarter time with him, obviously nothing fruity like. Seeing the man get changed a few times, pretty much broke eye contact for a mere second. And obviously saw this. Well, at first I thought a raccoon, literally started to ram raid his trousers, and it was just this thing staring at me, and it borderline was holding a pint and talking to me. I'm like, and I literally just glanced at this pipe. He's got a pipe, mate. He's got a huge pipe.
A bat.
He's got a bat on, I'm telling you. So how is life remotely fair, right? He's nice. He's the world's fastest road racer. He'll do anything for anyone, and he's got a huge dick. Life is not fair. Why? It's just not fair.
Tell you what, he's going to be back. He owes you a beer after this.
No, it's not fair. Honestly, it was like a car crash. I couldn't take my eyes off it. I'm like, stop looking at it. I'm like, this is just not fair. Not fair. And
so Hickman's got a bat.
Hickman's got a bat. So any ladies out there, Hickman's got a button. It's not fair. It really isn't fair. So anyway, that was a quick insight into Hickman's literal. You couldn't get any more personal than be Hickman.
How about next we'll go...
Here we go.
What's the crack with the Captain Kawasaki?
Right, Captain Kawasaki. Now, the crack of the weekend, this weekend has not done you and me any harm whatsoever. We have done some serious, networking, and this is a perfect opportunity to give a shout out to every single person who thanked you and me. The support we've got for this podcast is unreal. You know what I mean? You could definitely get a flavour for the characters that we're entertaining. The smiling, the laughing, they're having a really good time. But, obviously, we're down at the show. Huge opportunity to do some networking. So, Captain Kawasaki, because I can't remember his name. So, who is the main man at Kawasaki? Who's that? You introduced me to him.
Craig, who was interviewing us on stage.
Yeah, he was
Craig
interviewing you because obviously you went down and what were you doing again?
So unveiling this year's, this year's colours. So obviously it's been announced for ages who I'm riding for and stuff, but the actual colour scheme hadn't been announced until this weekend. So it did actually get unveiled on the Friday. So Danny Buchan and Lee Jackson took the covers off it, and it went out all over Facebook and Twitter and stuff. But then we did it again on Saturday. It was supposed to be me and my teammate Tom Ward, but he's coming back from Thailand. I think he had a bit of a cough, and he was due to a coronavirus scare.
Where is it? Hold on. Let's get rid of that title. And James Elliott accidentally has coronavirus. Honestly, let me just quickly jump on that before you finish your story. He genuinely believes he has coronavirus. He was just walking in going, I've got coronavirus.
I think every little cough and everything, people are worried at the moment on there. But I saw Tom. I think Tom had a bit of came back from Thailand and he had a bit of a cough, so that was it, but he had to be screened for corona, so he wasn't allowed to come to the show, so I did it by myself. But obviously you met Craig, who interviewed us on stage.
Hold on, before we go down that route, are you happy with the bike?
Absolutely beautiful.
Because they gave you a personal touch, didn't they? Craig, now that I remember his name, this is terrible, who listens to the show, so hello Craig, sorry for forgetting your name. But what did they do? Gave you a bit of pink, didn't it?
I run a bit of pink on me helmet, and I don't own leathers, so I think pink brake hoses,
which is a nice touch.
But yeah, the bike's absolutely stunning. Obviously, MSS Kawasaki Massingbird Mundi's the main sponsor for the whole job.
You promised me some gin.
I'm actually going down on. I'm going Thursday, Friday this week. So doing a getting to know the brand day. So,
is that an open thing? So can anyone go to this or?
No, it's all the riders. They gave us 10 days to pick from. So I picked this Thursday and Friday, but we'll go down, get to look around this. It's called the South Hornsby Estate, and it's like a big business, but it's diversified in loads of different ways. So sort of get to obviously the gin side of it's part of it. There's a distillery, but obviously there's the beef, the milk. There's a hotel there. There's all kinds of things, pubs, whatever. So I'll be able to tell you more this time next week when we do our next podcast. But I'm really looking forward to going down there Thursday, Friday. Okay, next one. Let's think.
Hold on, before we quickly go on, I obviously introduced me to Craig, but you see what's good about Craig? It is Craig, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can't. You've just told me his name. I've forgotten. It's like my little side note is he can talk and he can also walk the walk. He races as well, doesn't he?
They do. Him and a few, Dean and a few of them do the No Limits endurance racing,
which is
they're racing the same bikes, like the ZX10. So
we haven't got some college knacker who's obviously highly intelligent. It's just running essentially we haven't got an accountant running Kawasaki really. Mm-hmm. We've got a man who's very passionate about the sport and who must be a hell of a hand because he's winning those events, isn't he? Obviously, as a team, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they don't mess about. They're pretty fast.
Which is absolutely class, you know what I mean? So we'll have to get him on the show at one point. Obviously, you well, obviously I'm not because you're the respectable one. You'll have to ask him.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get you sacked. And obviously, I still like riding my Kawasaki. So there we go. So go on then. Right before
there was one about the pub. Something about what was it?
The pub. Well, I owe your dad a pint. Well, let's quickly scratch this one off. Basically, you and your dad. Your dad is absolutely fantastic, crack, and he's the number one fan for this show. And obviously, we get he's been a driving force for this, and it's class having your dad there because obviously he's totally brutal. If
he always gives us an honest rating out of 10.
Honestly,
I think the highest we've had. What is it? 7.5 or 8? I think we've had an 8, something like that. But
so. Yeah, you and your dad came out, and the thing is, MCN, while we were down there, we're throwing on a free bar, and you think you've got John McGuinness, you've got Michael Rutter, you've got the lads, you know what I mean? Few pints. Lads. But honestly, because your dad works in North London. Is it North London?
Well, I went down to stay with my dad, so I got to see where he lives, and obviously he works in the city, so he knows all the tubes and everything. And
how long was it taking?
I'm lost. It's just so busy. It's unreal. But I was taking. I think it took us about an hour to get from where he is in London down to the show. But it's 3 or 4 tubes, and then some of the lines were closed, so I had to walk, and it was a bit of a nightmare. But we were getting Ubers back, so that's obviously a bit more expensive, but a little bit better. But it was so good to just not just spend time with my dad, which was mint, but to all be there. Obviously yourself. Lauren, all the lads, the racing lads, and at the end of the day, I remember being like a fan who literally knew nobody at BSB, who literally used to go and like if I like see I remember seeing Leon Haslam like years ago and being like, bloody hell, there's Leon, like he's in British Superbike rider, and
You're like, get out my way, Leon. I've got practice again.
I've still got that like sort of fanboy side where it, going into the pub and standing with like the John McGuinness, Michael Rutter, and it's James Hillier, there's some fantastic, and they're all real genuine nice blokes, and
solid.
The crack over the weekend was just unreal. So funny, and obviously I think we'll get on to it a little bit later, but so obviously going out for food and just laughing. So
it was a mint weekend,
mega
mate.
weekend. I really enjoyed it.
But obviously, even quickly sum up that story. Obviously, your dad walks in, me and everyone else have been at the free bar. Obviously, I'm fairly cut up. Obviously, with the diet, I haven't been drinking. It's the first time I've been out on the drink, because obviously I wasn't paying for it. And obviously, your dad walks in, and I'm like, "Oh, John, this is Chris's dad." And anyway, I turned around and spilt a pint all over your dad, and your dad's like, I've just met John McGuinness, and this is what you've done to us, you little prick."
It was literally as we walked in, you just emptied a whole pint on him.
It was literally within 5 minutes, so I am really sorry for your dad. Really sorry. So,
and I tell you what, obviously I knew pretty much all the lads there, like Phil Crone. I've either raced with them or I've been in the same paddock as them, so I sort of know them. Other than Craig Neve, and he was the only one out of that group that I wasn't familiar with. And what a lovely lad he is,
isn't he?
I really enjoyed spending a bit of time getting to know him, and the crack was funny, and just do you know sometimes when you just meet people and you just click instantly with them? I was just on the same wavelength as him. He actually works as the same job as me dad, so like I
was about to say, because you don't work, so you don't say he works like me. He's actually an electrician. He actually works. But no, we're gonna have to get him on the show. But Aidan, obviously we're gonna get him on. Well, we've done an interview with him. We're gonna get him on the show, but them two together, Craig Neve is such a strong-willed, such a strong-willed man, and he's definitely going places without a doubt. He literally hit his knee off a curb at the Northwest. He just took the front.
I remember seeing on board Gary Johnson won it.
He was dishing out the portions to Gary Johnson. He was dishing out the portions, Babby, and obviously came up the hill. Boom! There goes the front, and obviously there's a rear view camera from Gary Trevor Johnson's on board. And it's just boof. He just whacked his knee, missed it. He was devastated. He came back with some absolute fury at the Macau. But like you see what you get. Sorry, what you see is what you get with Craig Neve, and he's solid. He's absolutely. But
because we've got two interviews coming up. This episode is going to be so long. I was just thinking, do you want to get through any of your other bits and bobs, or because I'm just thinking people probably won't even some people won't even finish this episode because it'll be so long.
But so we're gonna put. Oh no, you haven't even announced who we've got on.
Aye, so obviously with all the crack with what's happening with Norton, I got chatting to a guy a couple of weeks ago who's obviously you'll hear his story when it comes on. But I just thought it's very relevant. It's topical. Obviously, it's in the news everywhere to do with Norton going in administration, and there's obviously there's business sides to it, there's pension sides, but obviously we're interested in the bike side of things mainly, and to get somebody on who's directly involved in that.
Essentially, it was. We don't know. There's no other word for it. Like a victim,
really,
a victim of it.
Yeah,
you know
victim.
What I mean?
And it was really interesting, and I hope obviously this podcast it's good. Like we usually crack and jokes and having a good laugh. It's not really a funny topic, so it's quite a serious interview.
It's quite hard to drive, isn't it?
And the two interviews we've done, unfortunately, we had to do them on Skype, so the quality's not quite the same as what it is when we're sat. But the studio's in getting done, so hope as soon as that's ready,
definitely. Especially with the Ellison one, because obviously he's going through some troubles. And
we haven't even mentioned Ellison, but go on.
Oh crap! Right, sorry. Right. Well, basically, the other interview is we've got James Ellison on board, which is dead exciting, obviously, about his Northwest and everything he's gone through. But you'll hear in the interview, you'll get an honest side of him, a very honest side, especially on his personal level. And obviously, I think what we'll have to do, if he's willing to come back on, is a case of after the Northwest. We'll get it. I think we'll see a different man. I think we'll get a different vibe. But obviously, you'll hear the interview, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, spot on. So, sure, have you got? Do you want to wrap anything up? Any thank yous or anything, or should we do this after?
It's a case of I think if we leave I'll tell you what, we'll do it now. I'll tell you what, I'm going to quickly bang through these. OMG Racing are absolutely amazing. Mint crack. They want to come on the pod. That is a definite. They're a bunch of lads. Craig Neve, a bell end. He did turn off the fuel on Michael Rutter's bike, but he didn't know that, so I'm grassing him up, and that title was Don't Trust Craig. There you are. Peter Boast, generally the nicest guy in the world. Thank you so much.
I'm going to have to get down to the...
You're going to have to, mate. It's
flat track at school thing. It's down near the Neve lads, isn't it? So
Lincolnshire. But he's the only like flat track school in the country, and honestly, I was... It was absolutely amazing, mate. But I tell you what, I'm tight. Honestly, I'm as tight as a pre-snap banjo. I'm telling you, dude. Honestly, I'm done in, man. But honestly, Peter Boast, I've just ripped up the title there. You know, he looks like a pirate because he's got one silver tooth, but he's absolutely amazing, and I can't thank him enough for everything he's done. He may want to hit me after that. John and Rutter, they are far from old, because they're like a couple of children ripping the piss out of each other. Never changed, Michael and John. Pricks on the face, ask OMG Racing. It's all a fix. You touched that because obviously the racing was a fix, which was absolutely class. Smells like a drop strap because we're all getting changed in the same room with a sweaty bunch of people, which was awesome. And obviously we can keep going. Hillier can't admit to a mistake because he kept crashing into people. Rutter paid for Valentine's Day, paid for dinner and everything. So the man is a genuine article. Phil Crow, absolute demon on a motorcycle, but you wouldn't want to slap off him. Scary but nice. John McGuinness' son is punching because his girlfriend is... You've seen his girlfriend where you saw her at the bar.
Tell you what,
Ewan McGuinness, my hero.
Lovely lad, isn't he?
He is a lovely lad, and I tell you what, he must be a bit like on the Hickman side of things, you know what I mean? He must have a pipe on him, I'm telling you. Hickman can't just have fun.
Tripod.
McGuinness the tripod. Hickman cannot just have fun because he spent 2 weeks prior at Colin Edwards boot camp flat track racing. Some would call that cheating. We owe Hickman £1 million because we plastered chasing the racing stickers.
Is that the royal we?
That is the royal we. We owe him £1 million.
I tell you what, you did a great job there. I brought some chasing the racing stickers down for people looking on YouTube. These ones here, and you absolutely just plastered every bike. You obviously were for people watching. For people watching the YouTube video, obviously Dom's got his chasing the racing hat. We're working on some merchandise at the moment, so this is kind of our first try.
It's classy.
There's a few small changes to make, but it's almost exactly what we want.
Titty tassels on it, and it looks kind of weird.
So we'll have that coming really soon. But it was mint crack every time you were getting interviewed on the massive screen, like literally hundreds and hundreds of people watching it. You kept taking the hat and putting it on Barry Nuttall?
Aye, Barry Nuttall.
And sticking it on his head backwards.
He hates it. He hated it. He hated it.
It was brilliant. And obviously we had your leathers with chasing the race and all over. It was like the main, it was all over the place on it.
Everyone that won a heat, we had a chasing the racing sticker on their lid. So there's Pete Hickman, the world's fastest road racer, and the only sticker he had on his lid was my vandalisation of just putting a sticker on. So he's like, I've won the heat. And I'm like, that's mint. And obviously dishing out the portions, quote off the 4 days, because it's Michael Rutter in a thick don't call him a Brummie, mind, right? There's Black Country in Brummie. Honestly,
I'm reading his book at the moment, and I'm just past that bit about him from the Black Country.
I need to read that book, so we're interviewing him on Thursday. Oh, for God's sake. And obviously the only thing I've got to really, really tidy up, is a surprise. Taylor McKenzie's not a prick. Now, the only reason I thought he was a prick is because he's one of you, isn't he? He's one of them BSB wankers, a hair gel wanker. But I tell you what an amazing lad. But
he's proper sound, isn't
he? He is. And his girlfriend didn't stab someone. Basically, she was on the way to see him, and the train station got shut down because there was a stabbing. And obviously Taylor's going, I bet it's her. But obviously there is, honestly, I could go on all night, absolutely all night with a crack. But that is the Toblerone bit of story done, son. But obviously, if you want more, tune in for more.
Excellent.
And that's
it.
No,
we're wrapping up with that, or?
Yeah, well, obviously, I've got it. Jeez, honestly, this is just me.
Notes.
This is just me. Just honestly, I'm sorry, Chrissy. This sort of been a bit heavy on this one. Obviously, Anthony Ambler built me a steel shoe out of aluminium. It only lasted 4 laps. It did last 4 days. Fair play, top welding, and I can't thank the man enough. I need to put something on FaceTube about that, actually.
For people who don't know, obviously flat track and you put your leg out, if you had a rubber boot, it would just grip.
You just
so
flip over.
You have like most of them are steel, aren't they? But was yours Ali?
Aye, because
it's like a undershoe, so you put your boot on it and strap it in, and it means you can put pressure on it, but it slides.
Yep,
so.
Exactly. There you are. And obviously, I've got to say thank you, Nathan. Massive thank you to Nathan, and thank you to so much, absolutely so much to everyone for the support for the 130 Club. It is taken off. We've got more than 6 people. I'm over the moon. It all makes a huge, huge, huge difference.
Excellent.
And obviously, you know,
I tell you what, the logo you've had done with the trees and the Isle of Man thing,
it's
and like
hellish,
you pull the wheelie 130. It is the only thing I think it's missing is a little scared peacock.
But there's only one peacock honestly, on that photo, and that's me.
Honestly, mate, it's the logo. You've absolutely smashed it with that, and I can't wait to see the clothing, the hat, and obviously 130 quid. Let's be honest, is a lot of money for anyone.
Ton of money.
But it's it obviously it goes to a great cause, and it's I think you do really get something like, obviously it's like limited edition. It's a piece of history.
We're not getting a Primark hoodie, you know what I mean? We're getting high quality. You know, thing is, I want something to wear. I want people to wear it and go, this is actually meant. You know what I mean? You open a box and go, I'm actually a part of something, rather than just going, there's a cheap this, cheap that, and it's like, and you know, I can't thank everyone enough. I really can't, and obviously it makes a huge impact on my racing, and you know, money does not grow, and I'm a forester by trade, and money doesn't even grow on trees for me, never mind everyone else. So I can't thank everyone. I can't thank anyone enough. And obviously on another personal sponsor's come on board since this, John Winters, Foundry. I can't thank them enough. And Bennett, they listen to the podcast, so they'll be keeping a really close eye on what I'm saying. But obviously, the big fans of both you and me, mate. They love the crack and absolutely everything. So drove down there, and they've come on board for a spot on my lid.
Oh my God.
So they're on for the entire season. And obviously, keep an eye on my Facebook page. There'll be more from them. But it's just generally amazing. You know, just the support we're getting at the moment, and it goes. You know, this is an expensive sport, and without the support, you both you and me would be absolutely knackered. So I can't thank John Winter enough. And yeah, my final point, Eileen, my good friend Eileen, she's got 3 sessions left of radiotherapy, and she's been braying through it. Bless her, she's weak as a kitten at the moment, but she's keeping her head held high, and she always listens to the show. So God love you, and just keep on going, dear. Keep on going, honey.
Oh, mint.
So what about you, Chrissy, before we do these?
I've just picked up me brand new KX450, so I'm absolutely buzzing. And obviously a huge thank you to Kawasaki UK for lending us the bike for the season for a bit of training, and a good thank you to yourself as well for.
Well, mate, right? You live in the middle of Durham, and I thought you're gonna get robbed absolutely blind. Obviously, you know, but we all know I'm a tree surgeon by trade, and I've got my own business. Obviously, I've got my own gear, but keep it in a very highly expensive place, because obviously the security there is an absolute bloody fortune. But at least you can go to bed without thinking someone's going to rob your bike.
I really appreciate you letting us store it there, and I'll get
a
little workshop.
Not in my bloody unit. There you are. I keep mine piss off.
It's a good job as well, because I've got no tools. So I'll
hold on. How is this working into this? Hold on. So obviously, no. The thing is, it's off site. It's out of mind. That's what you want.
And I can't wait to get out. I'm hoping to get out sometime this week. So for the next podcast,
because some people aren't at work.
I know,
Christopher.
I know. So next podcast, I'll try and hopefully update you with some motocross action or off-road action.
There. I'm not saying anything.
Other than that.
Obviously, no, hold on. We are supposed to be like reporting on things, I suppose. So we better fit in some bit of recent. Let me unfold these ripped up bits. Pedrosa.
Unreal, wasn't it?
Where did that come from?
Seeing the times, like it was like a midgie's dick off being fastest, and he's not even
the size of one as well.
He's the test rider on a unfashionable bike, and it is incredible. P3, nothing in it, and you just think like.
Do you reckon it's because the pressure's off him? You know what I mean? Do you think it's just like, man, new challenge, doesn't matter what I do, boof.
It's kind of like going into a new era of MotoGP a little bit, with obviously Quartararo and Rossi's sort of coming to the end of his reign, and Another interesting bit, obviously Marquez is coming into the season with a serious shoulder injury.
Yeah, he's been
Really
very open about that, hasn't
Really
he?
struggled in testing, and I think he might even be getting another operation. So we might actually see the beginning of the season
With
Marquez
the new
either
champion.
not out on track, or if he is out, not very competitive, and that might
He
sort
might
of
be sandbagging, man.
spice things up. It could be possibly, but we'll have to see.
We're
And obviously Lorenzo working with Rossi, you never thought you would see the day, but obviously Lorenzo back
God.
on the Yamaha, and
We'll see how that one goes. But there's not been. Obviously, on the road racing side of things, Paul Jordan has pulled the wool over our eyes.
has he?
That's right, dog. Because obviously, I totally guessed this RAF crack, which I was totally bloody wrong. Damn you, because normally we get it bloody right, Chrissy.
The
rumour mill has failed us.
Is that
failed us?
Is that the
Damn it.
first time the rumour mill's been wrong? I think this
Totally
year,
failed, mate. Absolutely failed. Because obviously, he's honestly he's been as tight as a camel's arse in a sandstorm. He has not given anything away, but it's absolutely brilliant to see Paul Jordan, and he's a top end. Like, he really is a top end. He's definitely going places.
So is that Burroughs Engineering? Is that
Burroughs
the
Engineering.
Suzuki?
But they are a solid team. You know what I mean? As far as like road racing goes, not even just road racing. They don't be obviously they've got no footprint, shall we say, a solid footprint. Obviously, they've done a bit of British and stuff like that in the past, but road racing wise, you've got a serious bunch of experience, like ambition and everything. And I think that team's going to work really well for Paul.
Aye.
But I'm looking forward to see what he does, and it's going to be good because he's teamed up with Mike Brownie. Well, you got a Northern Irishman and Southern thing, but let's not talk about the politics of that. But no, it's going to be good because Mike's coming up on the scene. Well, he's not saying that. He's been on the scene a while, but he's just been given this big break, and it'll be good for him. It'll be very exciting to see what happens from there.
Also, I don't know if you've seen, but we're going to have 3 Irwins in British Superbikes next year.
Aye.
I've seen, so
Which I keep
obviously
getting mixed up with the names, man. With it's got Andrew, Glenn, and Graham.
Graham.
Yeah, you get it.
So Graham obviously had his debut in road racing, circuit racing,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean, tarmac racing this year, 2019, in Superstock, and he stepped up to the elite class, the Superbike class next year. He's riding for Zanotti. So Aaron Zanotti's got his own team.
Don't say that.
Sam Coventry was riding from last year. I think it's Haslam's old bike from not 2019, 2018, I think.
BM.
No,
No.
Kawasaki, the one he won the championship.
Kawasaki.
So it's for me, I would have liked to have seen him do another year in stock. I think, it's a massive ask to go from motocross to the British Superbikes. It's obviously incredibly impressive, but I'm a big believer in sort of getting to the front of a category, a class, before then moving up. And although he did finish the season strong in Superstock, relatively strong, I think it's a big ask for him to get up in the Superbikes, and I just hope that he gives it the respect and I know myself, I've been on Superbikes, they're very, very unforgiving, and it's very easy to hurt yourself. So I hope it all works out for him, and obviously it's a brilliant thing for the Irwin family to have 3 in the class at the same time. But
it'll be good to see how he gets on. Yeah.
Also, you don't know in terms of finances. If you're looking for a ride, he might have not have had a very good offer in Superstock, and therefore had a better offer in Superbikes, and had to take it financially. But I hope it does work out for him, and he gets a good testing plan. Obviously, Aaron's ran the team for the last couple of years, and he used to race, so he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And hopefully, it's obviously his brothers will be able to help him, and He's obviously got the talent. He was amazing at motocross. So, looking forward to seeing how that goes.
Absolutely awesome, mate. Right, so obviously, let's build into this next interview. It's a bit like, so we've got Project Norton. Project Norton instead of Project X. Project Norton, yeah.
Obviously, it's massive in the news. I'm pretty sure most of the people listening to the podcast will know bits and pieces.
It's not just that. It's internet. This is not just motorcycle racing. It's serious. This, isn't it? You know what I mean? Where he's the Norton investigation dipping into Liz's pocket. It's a serious thing. A very serious thing.
And I would suggest that people interested in the story go over to John Hagan is writing it's like what's it called, like a series of reports. He's interviewed everyone, and he is writing like an episode at a time with each interview, and it's much more in detail than this interview. This interview's, it gives a real good perspective from an actual Norton owner and his own experience. But as well as listening to this, I would seriously recommend that you check it out. It's on superbike.co.uk. Check it out. It's a really good article, and it doesn't make for easy reading, but it's
viewing wise.
If you want to know what's happening.
Is it a YouTube thing as well?
I don't think so, no. I think
all right, no, because obviously the photos are putting out, but obviously, follow the story from there. But obviously, we've got a Project Norton here, and we'll get his angle from it. So,
over
hit
to
the
our
play button.
Anonymous source, a Norton owner.
So we're joined by a anonymous source. I can't even say that word. Anonymous thought. So we're joined by Simon, a V4 owner from who's bought a Norton, and obviously with all the crack that's just been released in the MCN, ITV News, it's all over the Guardian, everywhere at the moment. Thought it would be a good opportunity to get you on the podcast and for you to to tell your story from your point of view. And obviously it's a massive story that's breaking at the moment, and there's a lot more to come out. But obviously, welcome to the podcast. And
where do we actually even begin with this? So, obviously, let's talk about your initial purchase of Project Norton, shall we call this? It's a case of you've gone through a hell of a struggle. So, you fell in love with Norton, you bought one. Let's go from there.
Yeah, that's right. I'm a V4 owner, so I've actually got one of the V4s. My journey started back in September 2016. That bike was on the NEC bike show, and I don't know if you remember, but the Motorcycle News published before then that the first 200 were the V4 SS, and all deposits were paid, and there was none more left. But when I attended the bike show, I was doing quite well at the time, and I thought, I'm going to have one of them. So I put my deposit down September 2016 and started the whole journey with Norton, which was, I think everybody wanted the whole thing to work, with it being an iconic brand. British motorcycle, first motorcycle really since the Hesketh that was going to be a superbike, 200 brake horsepower. I was up for it. Went through it.
Just for the people listening in on this conversation, who was actually riding for the team at that point, or were Norton not established at this time in the era? At the TT.
At the TT, well, if you remember, the TT bikes were run with the Aprilia engine, and it went through a number of people. Dave O. Johnson, I don't know if it was Dave O. or Cameron Donald was running at the time with Norton. But,
haven't I seen?
Yeah. It was the SG version of it, and they were running with the Aprilia on the basis is they were going to produce their own engine for the road-going version, which was the V4 SS. And that's what they had at the bike stand in 2016.
And so obviously we're talking about it's a proper bit of kit there sat there. Was the price tag around the 45 grand mark?
Yeah, 44 grand, 45 grand, a lot of money. And it was the SS version, which was then going to move into the RR, which I think the RR was something like either 22 or 24 grand. But the first 200 were going to be the SS version with a fully polished frame, swinging arm, and some race kit to go with it.
That's just that you could buy in the state where we're from. Well, that's obviously obviously I think the accent gives it away. You're a North East lad like ourselves here, but bloody hell, that's an outstanding lot of money. So at that point, what timetable did you have? So you've handed over an absolute. What was the deposit, if you don't mind me asking? Exactly.
But the deposits were 4 grand, so you put a 4 grand deposit down. And that basically got you a number. So when I was at the bike show, there was only 10 of the original 200 left. So I got one of the numbers, put the 4 grand down, and at that time I didn't realise, but I was within the first 20 I was told to put a deposit on them, even though the Motorcycle News had told everybody they'd gone. So yes, I think from the news we know now the horror stories that coming out, a middle-aged guy like me that can buy a Norton at 44 grand, and the horror stories around it were quite, and I want this to come across, there's a lot more people within this story of Norton have got a lot more done to them than what I have. I suppose I'm coming to it from a group that of the V4 owners, and you need to keep that into context because there's a lot of other people behind there, and the news is still coming out of what horror stories has happened. So this bit is about the bike and what's gone on with my journey.
And obviously, so you handed over your deposit. What sort of timescale were they saying for when you were going to receive your bike?
They talked about September 2017 to get the bike.
Right. And obviously, it's been well documented that there's been a lot of deposits taken, and then the lag time of actually getting the bike being like massively delayed. When was it that you finally picked your bike up?
Well, what happened was there was some pressure on us in September 2018. So almost 2 years went by, and we got to September 2018, and there was some pressure to say, look, we need your full money, and you'll get ahead of the queue, basically, but you were the first one to put the deposit in, get your money in, and we'll go from there. The bike's going to be ready within the next month to pick up. And what happened in September, obviously payments gone through, and anybody who went to the bike show in November 2018 might recall there was the first customer bike at that bike stand then. And I'll come back to that first customer bike, but the first roll of them started to come out. It was a chrome bike that was there, and although I didn't get it within the sort of 2 to 3 weeks we were talking about, everything looked good. We were going to get the bike. So I spoke to Stuart Garner at the bike show. He said, yeah, we should have your bike by Christmas. Christmas came and went, and you start to get a bit nervous when you've got 44 grand out of pocket and nothing to show. So I persevered with it, and believe it or not, the bike got collected by me and my wife in May 2019. So I didn't see the bike till the 2nd of May, collected it and brought it home from there.
I'll tell you what, you have a very understanding wife, mind. Let's just put that out there. You've obviously got yourself a keeper, because the fact that you've handed out all that money and you've got nothing to show for it. Blood.
She doesn't know the price tag yet.
Wait. Well,
she does now.
Oh, bollocks. There you are. Well, it's been good chatting to you. Enjoy the rest of your last 5 minutes on Earth. There you are. Jesus.
I obviously picked it up, and then have you, from receiving the bike, how many miles did you stick on it? Have you been far on it?
Bleh, through a rod there.
Well, to be honest, these bikes, I'm a firm believer in them type of bikes need to be used. So I did. I used it. Didn't use it a great lot at the time, so it had a 500-mile service needing on it, so I was getting up to something like 500 mile. We're moving into the winter period, so I rang Norton up and talked to them about the bike and said, look, I'd like to get it in for its first service, make sure everything's all right on it. And they also explained there was a software update to do on it, so bring the bike back, which is what I did in November, 8th of November to be precise.
And then took it in for a service, and obviously, Norton's then been in the news and whatever. What was the next sort of what was the next thing in the story?
So the bike goes in November. It wasn't booked for anything else but 500-mile service and the software update. I was concerned. The chrome paint that they had was. It wasn't the best paint in terms of, I think my bike, the first 12 or so that got released, the chrome bikes had a wrap on them, and there was some problems with that. My bike happened to be the first one that was painted, and when I took it down to the factory, it started to tarnish. It didn't look quite well on the different types of fairing sides it had. And the main problem with it is around the fuel cap. it started to delaminate, so from the fumes coming out the fuel tank. So I explained to them, I said, look, I'm not quite happy with that. Can you take a look at that? So about 3 weeks after dropping it off on the 8th of November, they rang me up and said, look, the chrome paint, you mentioned it, we're not quite happy with it. The issue we've got with the chrome paint, it all has to be done in one go. So we need to strip all the panels off and send it away for chrome paint. Are you happy for that to go ahead? And I said, is it all under warranty? Yeah, all under warranty. I said, well, look, crack on with it. It's the winter time. I'd like to get it. Yeah, I don't really need it. Let's get the fairing sorted out and I'll have the bike back. And that's basically what happened in that period from November. I got into December and I was kept getting updates. Updates is fine. Look, we're having a bit of a problem with the chrome paint. We're not releasing any bikes with chrome paint. We need to make sure it's right before it comes back. Yeah, I said, look, I had a deadline at Christmas. I wanted this bike back. I really want to push for that. I said, well, look, we're all going to close up for Christmas. It's going to be in the new year to do it. So the new year came, and even from my own knowledge, I knew there was a fair bit of pressure on Norton. There was the HMRC investigation, which was going to go to court, and it got adjourned till, I think, the middle of February. So from my point of view, I kept the pressure on during January to get this bike back, and I wanted a deadline of the end of January. I knew I wanted to pick this bike back. I wanted it back in my possession because I was getting a bit worried at that point. There was talk of winding up orders. I think DHL had a winding up order in, and the HMRC were going to have this investigation or court case in the middle of February. So I basically said, deadline the end of January, I'll have the bike back. I rang them and spoke to them, and we agreed I would collect the bike on the 31st of January. So January went through. That was about a week away, and then on the 29th of January, I think everybody knows the news, BDO administrators got called in at 3 o'clock that afternoon, and the company was straight into administration at that point.
So where were you, okay, I'm just, when that news came out, where were you exactly? Were you at work, or were you trying to keep your wife calm? And what were you trying to, where were you at the exact point that you thought, shit?
I was sat at home, and it was on the night, actually. I think it came through Facebook, and I got a call from my brother. My brother said, you'll never believe Norton's in administration. And we were arranged to go somewhere the next day, and I said, I'm going to be at them gates 8 o'clock in the morning. I want my bike back. That's my asset, that. Because technically, I've paid for it. The goods is in my name. It's been handed over. I've got receipt of goods. So I thought, I'm going to be at the gates at 8 o'clock in the morning, which was what we did. We were first there.
Hold on. When you say first there, was there a queue behind it?
Well, it's funny. I mean, you've been to Norton where it is done, I think. It's a funny old setup they've got there. And I think driving down, we didn't know what to expect. But when we got there, there's just a set of barriers. And I was expecting potentially some press to be there, a queue of people. The whole thing's gone into administration. I've seen it done before with companies into administration, and the thing goes into lockdown. So we were sort of going down half prepared to say, you're going to get turned away here. But yeah. I think part of it was I wanted to get in there to say, it's my asset. They can't say it's my asset because it's mine. So when we got there, it was, to be honest, it was really quiet, other than there was a fair set of security on which had been mobilised by the administrators.
No, yeah, God, they don't hang about when they want their money back, do they? Jesus wept.
So obviously, when you got there, you showed them proof of ownership and just said, like, my bike's in there, I need to go and get it. And we obviously got through the gates. Is it a big castle?
No, have you never been to Norton? I've never been to Norton, but basically it's like a big hall, and next to it's it was all British Airways originally, so it was like an office block. It was like an old
my baby, wasn't it?
Aye, that was it. That was it. That was it. So it was an old office. It's like an old office block. I've never actually been in the building in itself, but it's not like a fortress as such. But I know what you mean. It's surreal. It would be surreal driving down to it, going, well, there'll be that many fire exits, that many ways in. I think there's no direct, like, this is the office, go in. So, bloody hell.
So once you got in, did you obviously just said my bike's in here somewhere, and you eventually found it. What was the crack when you first went into the building and seen your bike?
Well, if you imagine, the administrators has now got control of that business, so they made us stand and wait for a bit, but they were willing to say it. So we got in, saw the administrators, and they held us in reception. That day we were there 5 hours really, from 8 o'clock in the morning. I didn't leave till, I don't know, something like 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But I couldn't. They wouldn't allow us to see the bike at that point. And I managed to bump in to Stuart, had a discussion with him, which you can ask us a bit later, but I had a discussion with him about what was going on. And the administrators and some of the team at Norton were scurrying around trying to find out where this customer bike was. So they came back out to reception, bearing in mind I hadn't seen the bike, and said, look, we've got your bike here, but I have to tell you, there's some parts missing from it.
And this is the administrator saying this. So Stuart Garner's, you've had a quick chat with him, and he's just saying, was he kind of shrugging it off? What was, obviously, it would be a... What was his initial reaction to you coming up here going, look, mate, you've got 40 odd grand, you've got 40 plus grand of my money. I wouldn't even know where to begin, where with that. I really wouldn't have a clue.
Well, you sort of, you're exactly right in what you're saying. You're having a discussion with Stuart. Stuart's view was, he turned the conversation, bearing in mind how quick it is, and you've got security with you. You can't even go at the toilet without the security watching you go at the toilet and back. It was, I'm being serious there, that's true. The security was with us everywhere, so you couldn't just wander around. And that conversation with Stuart, the bouncer, if you like, I'm calling him a bouncer because that's the size of him, is standing alongside, just keeping an eye on what's going on. So Stuart said, I don't know what these guys are doing here. Turned the conversation in about the bike into, he's basically lost 10 million quid. I've been frozen out by the bank. There's money in there and we'll sort the bikes out, but I might not be involved in it. But I promise you I'll sort the bikes out.
Mike, so hold on. Obviously you're after your property, and he couldn't give you a straight answer and saying, "Look, your bike's in there, son." You know what I mean? He was just trying to defend. But yeah, it's weird. That is weird. That is weird. So obviously you've had that conversation. You've gone around that, and then you've got to a point of then this random person with a clipboard going, right, your bike's in there, but all the parts might not be with it. So where did he go from that exact point?
Well, if you like, the most senior person in Norton sat you down and said, there's parts missing off your bike. And looking with the face of horror on my face, I said, well, what parts have gone missing? So apart from the fairings, which is obviously in for warranty, shall we say, dashboard gone, radiator gone, throttle body's gone, no exhaust on it. And there's something else missing as well. Throttle body's dash, radiator, exhaust. Anyway, there's something else quite significant gone. So I explained to him, I say that as theft. You've stolen them parts from my bike. Why is them parts being removed from the bike? Bearing in mind security over your shoulder at the time. And the administrator sits you down to explain, look, I can't tell you what's gone on before 3 o'clock yesterday. All I can tell you is those parts are missing from your bike. We're doing our best to look around the factory and see what we've got. But your bike's in there. I said, well, look, I want to see the bike. So I just leave it with us, and we're going to go and have a look around the factory, see what we can get together. It was actually the ABS module was gone as well. So time goes on. Anyway, we get into the factory, if you like, the workshop at the back, where the bike's presented is with no fairings on, and I end up with no dashboard, no radiator, which was fairly significant. The bike can't be started or anything like that, but the bike's there, and he's saying, you can leave it with us. You can leave it with us because the bike's insured with us under the administration, or you can take it away. And I'm thinking, the last thing I'm going to do is leave this bike here. I'm taking that away with us. So, fortunately, you've got to bear in mind the magnitude of what you know now and what I knew then is completely different. So, I literally don't see any other bikes because I'm concentrating on my bike. And I come away with the bike and a whole load of unprepared fairings that are not ready, if you like, just rubbed down. So I bundled it in the back of the van and we came away, and that's where we got to.
So when you went in to get your bike, was that in like a workshop, like a service area?
It's actually the assembly room, what they call, but it's the ground floor where they assemble all the bikes.
Right. Okay. And in there was did you say there was just your bike, or was there other bikes there?
There was other bikes there. I didn't see any V4s at the time. If you imagine, it's partitioned off in different places, but my bike was presented where it was. And
obviously there's been like a story in the MCN this week with exactly the same story as yourself, but another guy from, I think it was Epsom or somewhere in London, and like exactly the same story, basically went in to collect his bike, and it was like half a bike basically.
Well, no, I think the story, what people don't understand is, since me collecting my bike, there's I believe there's 9 bikes involved in that story, in that situation. So you've got owners who've actually paid for them, collected them, took them back for either a service or a warranty issue, and there's 9 bikes, of which there's the one in the MCN that you've mentioned has been stripped. There's another one that's been on Twitter that you've seen is completely stripped. Well, I've actually seen 2 other bikes that's completely stripped as well. When I say stripped, I mean stripped down to the swinging arm, frame and engine, and that's all that's left of these bikes.
And I mean, all these parts that obviously people have, it was a full bike when they were put in, and then obviously they've been stripped down. Parts aren't in the factory. Have you got any sort of evidence of where they're at now, or what the people in the factory have done with them, or what's the crack?
Well, those bike parts, I think, coming back to January 29th, if you go back, and I'm stepping back in time a little bit, what messes with this story is there is some Twitter feed where people have been delivered bikes in January and chrome bikes, so that's happened. And then you get to this story where I go down and there's parts missing from my bike, albeit, shall we say, a small in the scale of it. And then you move to the next story where bikes has actually been stripped, and I mean properly stripped. These bikes are, and they've been aided. Those parts have gone where Norton can't be able to pay suppliers, so therefore they've used them parts of owners' bikes for the production line.
Bloody hell! So these parts have been
horrendous, isn't it?
Second-hand bikes and being put on to be sold as brand new bikes and shipped off to other customers. So they've essentially sold the same parts twice. Yeah.
Parts which they don't own.
That is just mental on this.
It's difficult. You think, well, how do you come to fathom that out? How they've done that?
Well, that is literally the oldest expression in the book, isn't it? Robbing Peter to pay Paul, and you just think you can't get out of that, can you? You enter a circle, where you can't escape, can you?
With the, I mean, did any of the 9 people that have had bikes stripped, did any of them, maybe like put anything unique onto the parts that could then be traced, or did like every bike has little nicks and little nicks and little marks and stuff that would be recognizable to yourself, to your own bike? Is there any way of tracing those parts?
Potentially there is. I am aware that there is some of the bikes got unique identification on, but
like a data tag, like an aftermarket data system, right? Aye.
Could be, but the issue you've got is these bikes have been stripped and used for parts to make other bikes up. People asking questions. Well, the V4, you've been to the bike show recently. I think John Hogan put something out where he was saying, can anybody identify how many bikes is out there unregistered? Well, I think people will be surprised that probably registered is in the low 30s out of 200. I think I've been told we're around the 50 mark that's actually been produced. So the difference between registered and actually produced, you've still got people who are just buying these and unregistered them, if you like, sticking them under the stairs. And you've got some that's probably gone for export as well. So them V4s, there's only about 50 in the world.
I mean, it's absolutely criminal, that, isn't it? And I think a lot of people listening, a lot of people like in the biking world, will maybe have an understanding of that. Businesses can go wrong, and people can take risks and like find themselves in financial difficulties through different ways. But like after reading all the articles and like what's going on, it seems like from day one this whole thing has just been a big shower of shit, and that it's not just a few do you know what I'm saying?
It's not a couple of pence rolling down the hill, is it? You know what I mean? We're talking yourselves, like victims. We've got victims here.
And obviously, like you've mentioned, there's a few V4 owners who have been robbed. But then when you look at the whole scandal, like right across, from the pensions to the for that is it Spondon Engineering? Obviously, I read that article that John Hogan did in Superbike magazine today, and that's the first of, I think he said, 8 sort of episodes. So, and obviously that was a really interesting read, and I think it's highlighting stuff that nobody knew about. But it just seems it's such a massive sort of story, really, isn't it? And like yourself that have personally lost money out of it, it must be very difficult to read.
Well, nobody wants to lose money, but when you look at people that's got pensions in there, and some people's never even seen those pensions, they've actually died before they've got them. And I'm reading that, so I'm not aware of them. I think the bit I'm giving you the facts is if somebody who's actually got to the stage of owning and receipt of those goods, and this is what's happened to me bike. But to add to that story, I've told you there's 4 bikes that I've physically seen photographs of in the factory that are completely stripped. The bike that was at the bike show in 2018, I said, which was the first customer bike, which was actually lent to Stuart for, look, if you get me bike ready, you can take it to the bike show, no cost to you. You can have it to show the public that you've getting this bike ready. That bike is one of the 4 that is completely stripped. That just shows you the man he is and what he's done to the owners of these bikes, never mind all the other horror stories that's starting to unfold as we go through it.
So what is the next stage for yourself and for other people in that same situation? What are you going to do now? So you have this rolling chassis. Is this rolling chassis back in your property, back in your ownership?
Well, I've got mine in possession. There's other people who just left them where they are.
Right.
Coming to my situation is, I've reported this to the police. So
it makes it yes, because obviously, yeah. So you've reported the So now, what's the next stage after that? What are you waiting for now? What are you waiting for?
I'm waiting for the police to wake up and realise how big a magnitude this is. So the police have told me, okay, we'll file and close that case at the minute. Bearing in mind, it's only got a few little parts. So the other guys I was involved with busy trying to say, look what's gone on here. We've got £400,000 worth of bike. That's probably got £250,000 worth of gear taken off them. So we've got that going on with the place at the moment. We've then got these bikes, obviously, with them being in receipt of them, they're insured. So really, out of everybody in the picture, we've got an insurance to lie on, but the insurance companies can't decide whether they're insured or not at this point. So I can't tell you at this time when we're doing this sort of interview whether I'm insured or not. So, and neither can some of the other guys. But if it goes into insurance, so let's say the insurance company say theft of equipment, and we need to replace that. My desire is that insurance company then fights that with Norton's insurance. But at this stage, we don't know whether Norton's insured either. So there's a number of meetings to go ahead with that to see where the recovery of the funds is. So if you peel that back and what's going on from a process point of view, and you come to, well, what's left with Norton, I think Norton's in administration, so the company's still functioning for the next 6 or 8 weeks, the time scale for them to do. But I can tell you now, looking in the eyes of the administrator, there's nothing left there. There's a square root of fuck all.
Bloody hell. So
if you, and not to get into the business side of it, but if you well up to speed of what's gone on, there was 4 companies that went into administration at that time, and they're incorporated, so they have what can be described as the veil of limited liability. I think my issue with that is if you can prove the directors, and it's not just Stuart, there's other directors involved in there, and if you're going to strip a bike, you guys strip bikes down for racing all of the time. It's not just one man that does that. There's a group of people got to strip those bikes and involved in that. Yeah. And you'll hear the horror stories out of Norton that people's been threatened with the livelihoods and the jobs to do those tasks. But at the end of the days, between November and January, not one person squealed on that process that was going on. Nobody rang me up and said, you need to get out of this factory and just call in and say, and just check on your bike. Nobody. And that never happened to any of the 9 bikes that are in there. That all got hit to us cold. So why did it take Metro Bank and the administrators to tell us that? So there's a lot more going on inside of Norton, or was going on inside of Norton, that needs to come out. And really, from my point of view, and I bumped into Chrissy, and I talked about this, and he said, you need to come on the podcast. I think it's important that people understand what's going on, and if they've got any facts, to get them out. Social media is not really the platform to do it, but there's a couple of guys on there 2 years ago set about to get the information right that was out there, and they were lambasted for it on there, and they've been proved to be right, and they have to be applauded for that.
I'm certainly looking forward to reading John Hogan's, episodes of, because he's done the most scrutiny on the whole of the whole topic. He's interviewed everybody involved from top to bottom, and I think he's going to be producing a series of interviews. So I'm looking forward to. So obviously at the moment it's very limited what we can find out, what we know about the subject. So I think as the more that's published, the more people talk about it. I think over the next few weeks we're going to find an awful lot more about the whole.
I think it's important. It's important. I mean, from my point of view, I started to look at it. It's quite embarrassing when you look at it. I know John McGuinness used those words. It's embarrassed to be involved in it. I mean, he's had quite a few people's pants down while he's gone through this process. So I think if people can get over that and just come back to the facts of what actually has gone on, it's important. And I know where I want to happen, and he should never be in charge of another company. And I really want the Norton name to live on. Nothing to do with my V4, but I believe the Norton name is bigger than Stuart Garner. And I think there was a German journalist described it and said, this really needs to be an unlaminated episode in Norton's history, and it needs to move on, and it needs to get a good reputation and move out of that, and that would be the best for everybody.
Yeah, and I think everyone would hope that, and it's like I say, it's going to take a lot because they're in such a hole at the moment, and it's not really an appealing project for somebody right now, but let's hope that does happen.
Yeah, I do.
I will. Thanks very much for coming on, and obviously, really
telling your story.
Really sorry to obviously hear of your personal loss.
Yes,
and it's absolutely tragic. Reading about all. I mean, I seen a guy on ITV News there he's got a serious illness. He can't work, and he's lost $100,000 in this whole thing. And you're looking, and you can't. It's just unreal, and it's criminal in it. So I really hope that the people that have been lost money and lost the deposits and stuff do get get the compensation that they deserve. And looking forward to following the story anyway. But thanks very much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you spending the time, and you just got to keep moving forward with things. And I do hope everybody gets something out of it, and it moves on in a good way.
Well, thanks very much, mate, and we'll catch up sometime soon.
All right. Cheers, lads.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
So big thanks to our source who came on, and like I said before the interview, it's not like a good for any motorcycle fans. It's horrific news, and it's. Yeah, a lot of people have lost lots of money, and there's obviously all the people that are working at Norton, like they've all got families and mortgages to pay, and there's so much, it really is bad news for everyone that's involved. But I think it's important that people know the facts, know what's happening, and get a feel for the story.
Definitely.
And, I hope that was interesting, and I hope it's. It's
that's the thing, we were discussing this last night. It's a very we've almost stepped into hardcore media here. You know what I mean? It's like we're a podcast. We like reporting. We're having a bit of crack and everything. And I think that was a serious piece of journal. Obviously, like you were saying beforehand, there's a lot of it's an international story. And there's a lot of details that need filling in. But it was, thank you very much for him coming on and. Getting his side of it, bloody hell, especially serious. Jesus, and for
those
the man.
For those that are watching the YouTube video, you'll see that I've got my stand fixed, so I'm back.
It's back
running. And on that
back to full erection.
On that note, I would just say a big thanks to Mark at Blacktop Media, who's been editing these videos and putting them together, because I know it's a hell of a lot of work. We've got two cameras.
You can make me look better, though, couldn't you? You can make me look better.
We've got two cameras, and to put it all together to make the YouTube video, it's not an easy task.
Three.
We've actually got three cameras now, yeah.
We do.
Big thanks to Matt on Two Wheels on Twitter, who's very kindly sent us this Sony, it's like an action cam. So I'll maybe stick it on the motocross bike and see what's matching. But really appreciate that. Very kind gesture. And I'm sure
I got to meet him down at the show.
Oh,
what a lovely lad. There we
Excellent. Are. Good. Well, without further ado, honestly, this podcast is going to be so long, but we've got all the cracks.
If you want to drive down to London, this is beautiful.
Or you can split it over a couple of nights or whatever.
Definitely.
But next, obviously, James Ellison's been in the news recently. He's
becoming a road racer. Yeah,
making his Northwest 200 debut. So after a very what's the word?
Career,
varied. A varied career.
Definitely.
Can you say that? Yeah, he's
done everything.
A vast career across, BSB, AMA, World Supersport, MotoGP. Beating Valentino Rossi. He's had this crazy career. Really,
he's lived the dream, without a doubt.
And obviously, over the last year or so, things he had quite a decent year.
Oh, we're going to ruin.
Hold
on. I think we should just stop here and hit the play button because we're going to ruin everything here. But obviously, because of the length of the interview, which is, it's great, and thank you so much for James for taking the time to do that. We're literally going to cut the interview. Cut the program straight after the interview. So, obviously, from me and Chrissy and our sponsor. But go on, say that name again.
We'll do
Mersey. God, we're not reading that again. Come on, it's a great college. Go back to the beginning of the program. Thank you so much for sponsoring us.
That's it.
Episode
41. This is
41. Jesus, Web. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and so we basically talked to James about doing the Northwest and starting road racing.
Yes,
and then we kind of go back to the beginning of his career and go right the way through. So it is a long interview, but if you're interested in finding out the life and works of James Desmond Ellison, check it out. But without further ado, over to I think it's about an hour with Mr. James Ellison.
There we are. Enjoy and catch you next time.
So we're joined from right across the world in South Africa at the moment. Welcome to the podcast, James Desmond Ellison. How are you doing, son?
Yes, you saw Desmond in, didn't you?
Desmond.
Is that Brad Clark from Powerslide told you that?
No, I've been looking at your Wikipedia page today.
Yeah, right. He's been trying to get everybody to call me Desmond from now on. Because Mr. Brad Clark seems to know everybody in the world, it's getting round quite fast.
Oh, wait, it's on your Wikipedia page. So if you want to keep it a secret, you might want to go and edit that one.
It's not even on my passport.
Is it not?
No.
No.
It's my dad's name. It's my granddad's name. He's not with us anymore, so yeah, I'm very proud of it. I used to be embarrassed about it at school, but yeah, I'm very proud to have it now. So you can call me Desmond if you want.
Oh, God. It's like the what's the race? Macau. All the middle names are printed on the entry form for Macau, so that's when everyone all the people that enter that, you get to know what the proper names are. But anyway, welcome to the podcast. And obviously, you said you're out in South Africa. What you doing over there?
Yeah, well, I got invited out by Bjorn Esmond. He's a good friend of mine. We've done a bit of training together in the UK, and obviously, just hung out a few times, and we're both into the same stuff, obviously training. And yeah, just cold weather in England. He invited me out here and said, look, it's 30 degrees. We've got a couple of push bikes. I've got a supermoto, got access to all the tracks, and he's got some work for me, some on-track race instruction with a Suzuki 1000 as well. So I thought, why not? So yeah, I've just flown out for 10 days to kind of train with him, and obviously we're in South Africa, so we've got to go and do the safari stuff, which we did this morning. I think we're doing a bit of hunting. I think we're doing a bit of wild bird hunting tomorrow. So I'm sorry if that offends anybody. I've never actually hunted before, so I'm going to purposely miss every single one because I'm not into it, to be honest with you. But yeah, just trying to experience South Africa a little bit. But really, it's just to get some training in, get some track time in. Unfortunately, with current events, I missed the boot camp this year, just with time and everything. I had to come back to England a little bit earlier, so I've missed the boot camp, Texas Tornado boot camp, for the first time in 7 years. So it's the first winter that I've not actually done any riding. So yeah, I just want to get out here and get some riding done before the season starts.
Oh my God! And obviously you've been like in the news quite a bit recently, with obviously making your debut at the Northwest 200 for this year. Are you looking forward to making your road race debut?
Yeah, I am. It's really exciting, and because it's something different as well. I've wanted to do it for a number of years. Never really looked into it too seriously because I've always been focused on BSB or MotoGP or World Supersport, whatever it is. I've always focused on that championship. And I just thought, with doing the Northwest, it's something obviously you need to do a lot of research, a lot of practice, go over to the island a few times, visit it, obviously watch endless amount of onboard videos, which is what I've been doing. It's just so different to short circuit racing that I know I'm going to have to take a different approach, and I've never really wanted to step aside from short circuit racing enough to be able to focus on the Northwest and take it seriously. And obviously with this year, I'm not committed to a full BSB championship. I'm doing the World Endurance Championship for Myerscough Yamaha, but that's only 3 rounds this year. There was 2, the 2020 season actually overlaps into 2019. So they've done the Bol d'Or, and we did Malaysia, Sepang in December, and then we've only actually got 3 rounds this year, so it leaves like quite a big gap in between that. to fill in. So when I got the opportunity to do it, I jumped at the chance, and every day since then I've been getting more and more excited about it.
I bet. And is that all you've got planned in for this calendar year now? The Northwest and the World Endurance.
And World Endurance, yeah. I mean, I'll be obviously going to as many BSB rounds as I can. I've been asked to go there to be a bit of a mentor for some of the riders, and possibly test rider for some of the teams. But I just didn't want to commit to the full season again. I've got other job opportunities as well. I've been doing a bit of work for Triumph, filming for them, some commercials and stuff. Mm-hmm. So there's lots of stuff that's going to fill the gap in.
And what about in the future? Are you after you've made your debut in the Northwest? Do you think that there'll be a chance that you'll get more into the road racing and possibly look to do the Isle of Man TT or also Grand Prix?
If I'm honest, I mean the TT is something that if I was going to do it, I would have done it earlier in my career. It's very different. The Northwest, it's roads, but it's very sort of short circuit based as well. It's really just a long short circuit with curbs and lampposts and a few trees and sheep in the field. Mm-hmm. TT is something different, completely different altogether. That'd take a number of years to sort of even adapt to even learning the circuit. I wouldn't know where I was going. I'd be a danger to everybody else. So no, it's not something that appeals to me, to be honest. The Northwest is something that's really, really excited me, but I've not thought of any other road racing aside from that. So I think it'd be one of those events that I'll do. I'll compete, do the best I can. If I enjoy it and we do well there, then it'll be something that I'll continue to do for years to come. But it's not going to make me make the switch to road racing full time.
Right. Okay. And what about your sort of aspirations looking ahead for the Northwest? Have you got a particular sort of target in mind, or is it just a case of give it your best and see where you're at?
Yeah, honestly, mate, as you know, something like this going into it not completely blind, but kind of. I can't have an expectation because the guys that are doing it right now have been doing it for a number of years. You've got your Irwins and obviously Hickey and Seeley especially. He's the most winningest guy there. These guys have done it for a number of years. I know I've not got a chance with them whatsoever. Cooper, obviously, I think a bit of an exception going there in his first year and sticking it on the podium. Mm-hmm. It can be done, but I'm not going in there with that mindset. I'm going in there certainly on a Tuesday, which is the first time I go out on track, just to learn the circuit, get a feel for it. There's a lot of, the circuit in particular, the layout isn't difficult to learn, but you've got to read the tarmac, you've got to read the tarmac changes, undulation. There's a lot of off-camber, on-camber changes, white lines. There's lots of things that you have to learn before you can go there and really attack it. So I'm kind of going in with, an open mind. Obviously, like anything, we're both motorcycle racers. We're going, 110%. But I'm going in there with an open mind and not really any high expectations. Just do the best I can. And if we come away with the podium, then hell, I'll definitely be going back next year.
Right.
Sorry, so hello, James. It's Dominic here, the other knacker on the show. How are we doing? I'm just going to jump straight in with the first question from me then. Are you only going on one bike, or are you taking a field of bikes such as the Supersport, Super Twin, or are you just going there, one bike, one mindset, and just learn it that way?
No, it was, like I said, the history of this, for people who don't know, is Brad Clark is the owner of Powerglide Motorcycles, is a good friend of mine. I've recently just sold a house in the UK, and I'm in between selling one and then renting somewhere else until we find another property. So he gave me somewhere to stay at his house. So we've been kind of chatting, and he dropped in that he was doing the Northwest. This is only going back last week, by the way. He dropped in that he was doing the Northwest, and I said, well, I'll come and spanner for you if you want. Obviously, I'm a fully qualified mechanic. I've worked on lots of race bikes before, so it was just something that kind of appealed to me, and I've done it for a friend of mine before at the Northwest, actually. And then he just turned around and said, well, I own a bike shop. I can get you another bike. Come and race for me. And that was it. I said, well, do you know what? Why not? And it just kind of went from there, really. So at the minute, it is just Superstock. So we're both doing the Superstock class on a Superstock bike. And Brad has already, I think, committed to doing the Superbike entry as well to get more track time. So I'll maybe do the Superbike race, but it will only be on a Superstock bike.
Oh, bloody hell. Well, no, fair enough. It's a good way of learning it. At the end of the day, it's yourself. It's obviously it's pretty balls to the walls flat out. So don't get me wrong. Now, a man of your experience, I guarantee you, the second night you'll get there and gone, shite, I wish I had a super bike. I'm telling you, because you're gonna get swallowed up down the streets. But
you know what? Brad said the same thing. He's like, we're just making a super bike just in case you want to do it. So yeah, to answer your question, I think at the minute, potentially there's going to be a super stock and a super bike over there. I have actually been asked to do a Supersport race for a different team, so kind of still debating that at the minute.
Honestly, I can't believe, Chrissy, I'm giving James Ellison advice. This is now he's a career move.
I'm going to take you on board as well because it's the first time for me.
No, but honestly, the thing is, the more track time you get out there, you get one crack at this a year. With the Northwest, it's not like going to Cadwell, and just spinning laps. No, so if you can get more bikes, and obviously you've got the right attitude about learning it, so you're going there, you're going to take it step by step. But if someone's going to offer you a bike, I would take it. But don't get me wrong, I know to be very blunt, a man of your caliber needs to be you need to be on competitive machinery and also very safe machinery. And I think I think going knocking on some doors, some top rides wouldn't do you any harm because you'll definitely get that extra track time and it'll just build your confidence up massively.
Yeah, but the great thing is I haven't had to knock on any doors so far. It's been, the response has been crazy. The amount of people that have contacted myself and Brad, offering help. Mechanics, obviously Northwest 200 guys, Mervyn White, all the guys over there have been absolutely amazing. BBC Northern Ireland, everybody's just sort of, all of us, it's weird, it kind of just exploded over 2 days. So when we went over there for the newcomers, the sort of classroom stuff we had to learn with Steve Plater, took us around the circuit a few times and sort of taught us what to do and where to be, took us through all the safety aspects of the Northwest and how it's run, the paddock layout, basically everything, so we're not sort of shocked when we get over there, we know exactly what to do. But the whole response from everybody, it's just, we couldn't ask for any more really. And like I say, I've had a few offers. The Super Twins is something that's appealed to me as well, something a bit slower that I can learn the tracks on. So I think it's definitely a good idea to do at least a couple of classes.
Who's been offering you? Come on, drop some names.
I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything. But regarding the Supersport bike, I'll give you 2 letters, and you can guess it from that. There's an M for mother, and there's a V in it somewhere. So there's a possibility of doing that, which does appeal to me. So we'll see. I mean, Brad Clark, obviously the Powerside Motorcycles are a Suzuki and an MV dealership, so it would be good for him as well. We'll think about it. Like I said, it's a couple of months away yet, so we've got plenty of time to sort of plan things out.
Mega. And I was actually speaking to Alistair Seeley we've just been to the London show at the weekend, another XL show, and I was having a crack with Seeley, and we mentioned the fact that you were doing the Northwest, and he was asking if you've had a lock-in at the anchor. Yes.
No, we haven't, but I've been told about it. We had some lime and soda water when we were there, and the guy just frowned at me when I asked for it. It's just like, I think it's a different breed that go in that place. So we're looking forward to going back to the Northwest and getting involved. Getting involved with everybody after the race weekend, and just enjoy it really. But I've heard it's a bit of a big party that goes on there.
Oh, honestly, mate, I'm not kidding. Fuck the armband off. You're jumping in the deep end of the anger. I'm not kidding. Serious, man.
So obviously, I was wanting to ask you all about the, making your Northwest debut and stuff, but having you on the podcast, obviously you've had a very long and successful career, ranging right across the world, loads of different championships, and obviously there's loads of crack there. Now, I don't want to, take up all your evening, but I was just wondering if you go back a little bit and have a bit crack about your career and like how it all started and some like highlights over the years. So obviously you're from not that far from us, just across the country. Is it Kendal or Keswick or
Kendal? Yeah,
Kendal. When was it? How did you first get into racing in the first place?
It was my dad, to be honest. He was always involved in racing, just did his own thing. Obviously a very, very small budget. He just built his own bikes out of parts. He was great at just building something out of nothing, just tinkering in the shed every night. And he used to race old Nortons and classics, LC 350s, 250s, all kinds of stuff. And me and my brother used to go to all the races. And we used to just ride around on BMXs and just dick about like kids do. We weren't really interested in it back then. We didn't appreciate it that much, really. It was just, for us, it was just a fun day out, away from the house and just doing something fun and playing about on BMXs. But it didn't really become an ambition of mine until I was about 14. I was always into off-road stuff, and road racing never really excited me. I was more into riding, BMXs and mountain bikes, and I was heavily into sports. I used to play rugby for the school and athletics, and I was always outdoors, but motorcycle racing as such didn't really appeal to me until we went to the NEC, actually, where it all kicked off. Me and my cousin were out there, and I wanted to start motocross racing. He wanted to do road racing, and we tossed a coin for it. That was it. It was heads or tails. Heads would go motocross, and tails would go road racing. It landed on tails, so we went to the Junior Road Racing, as it was then, Junior Road Racing Association. It used to be running like Three Sisters and Elvis and all that kind of stuff. They were handing out leaflets at the NEC, so it kind of just went from there, really. My dad built me a bike for about 120 quid, a little MBX 80, which I've still got. And we went road racing, and it turned out I seemed to be quite handy at it, and we started to get a bit of help from people. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's kind of where it kicked off.
We're gonna see loads of brothers at the NEC in November, aren't we? With flicking coins.
Flipping a coin, yeah. Obviously, when you're that age, then we didn't know where the money was going to come from. It's just that's kind of what we wanted to do. But the great thing about my parents is, like I say, we've never had money. Dad works at BT, and Mum works in a carpet shop. We're very, humble people. He just, they've always just given us 110% behind us, whatever we wanted to do. And at any moment in my career, whether it's MotoGP, BSB, World Superbikes, my dad's always said, look, if you do not want to go racing, just stop, and we'll be fully behind you. So obviously it helps having a supportive family, but yeah, that was it. We kind of decided to go road racing. My dad, chipped in for some parts on a bike and built me a little MBX, stuck a set of tyres on it, and we did a whole season on one set of tyres.
And I've been doing a bit of research on your website and Wikipedia and stuff today, and I seen that was it the Super Teen Championship. What you did next? Well, I'm interested in Super Teens because I did it myself, and obviously I know loads of people that we've had on the podcast started with Super Teens. What year did you do it?
So I did the first year I did junior road racing was '95. That was on the Honda. So they had the A and the B class back then. So the A class was like your Kajivas, Aprilias, all that kind of stuff, the Italian bikes. The B class was your Hondas, your sort of AR50s. I think the TZ125 was allowed in as well then, as long as it was standard. Anyway, so we did that the first year. Then '96 we did the Italian class, we did the A class on the Cagiva, which Mike Edwards actually helped me a lot with. He basically said to my dad, look, that kid's fast. If you can get him one of the Cagivas and enter the A class, he'll have a good shot at it. And he said, I'll tune the engine with Frank Raffle, I'll pay for that. So again, we found another crashed Cagiva that my dad built up out of bits. Went and did the championship in '96, and we finished third in the championship. James Tolson won it. Steve Brogan was second, and I was third. And then it just escalated from there. So the following years, when I started Super Teens in '97 with Dean as well, my brother, we both started then. So I was in it '97 and '98. What year were you in? You probably weren't even born then, were you? How old are you?
24, 2009 and 2010.
Dude, I'm 39. You're making me feel old now.
So when you did Super Teens, how did you get on with it? Where did you finish in the championship?
So Super Teens, what year did we do it? I remember one year I finished third. That was in '98. The first year we had a bit of a difficult year. I can't remember where I finished, to be honest with you, in the first year. You have to have a look. I know my brother beat me anyway. I think Dean was fifth in the championship. I can't remember where I was.
That was sort of after sort of McGuinness and Rutter era, but before sort of Casey Stoner and Chaz. Casey Stoner won it in 2000 with Chaz Davies, Craig Jones, those.
Yeah, I was before that, obviously. I think then it was just the Aprilia Championship, wasn't it? When I did it with Mark Heckles, he was there on a Cagiva. Right. Mark Burr, you've probably never heard of them.
But, and then from then you kind of hit Europe and you sort of for a number of years kind of made your name in the European Superstock Championship, World Endurance, kind of a little bit different to most riders in in the BSB or World Superbikes or whatever. It's not the traditional sort of 125 600s and then up the ladder.
No, it's not. But it was kind of
from Europe.
It really panned out from doing the juniors in '95, '96, and then obviously Super Teens '97. That was all privately with my dad, just me, my dad, and Dean really. And then at the end of '97, I got offered a ride with a new team that just started up. It was called Young Guns Racing, and it was run by a guy called Dave Dean. got a lot of experience at the Isle of Man TT. I still keep in touch with him a lot now. He comes and watches all the races. And he had signed me up for the Super Team Championship in '98, also the CB 500 Championship in '98 for me to get used to 4-strokes. And on top of that, I was doing the 600 class in '98. They did like a standard national 600 championship. So I was doing 3 different classes, 3 different bikes, 3 very different bikes. And I was living at the workshop in Wigan, so I actually spanned and stripped those bikes down to every nut and bolt every single weekend, cleaned them up, built them back up, and went racing the next weekend. He was very, very disciplined team manager. I just lived in the race truck in a haulage yard. I did that for about 3 years. So I raced for the Young Guns team then. Obviously, we had a great result in Super Teens. We sort of jacked the 600 halfway through the year because it was getting too busy. And the CB 500 Championship, I won 11 out of 12 rounds. So we had a great year on that. And then after that season, after '98, he was like, look, we need to get you out of England and get you onto the European scene, because he said, I think you've got a bright future in the World Championship and we need you to get you learning the circuits. So in '99, we went and did the European Supersport Championship under the Castrol Honda colours. So it was kind of quite a bit of a steep curve, to be honest with you, from first starting out. So by the age of 18, I was already on the world stage doing, bearing in mind I started at 15. By the age of 18, I was on the world stage riding for Castrol Honda alongside the Young Guns team, Toseland on the Supersport, Per Reber on the other Supersport bike, Colin Edwards, which is how we became really good friends, and Aaron Sight on the other superbike. So it was properly chucked in the deep end.
And then from Europe, was it from there back to BSB?
Sorry, go on.
So was it back to BSB by about 2004?
Yeah, we did then. So '99, I went and obviously did the European Superstock Championship. But I was on a 600. All I was doing was promoting the 600 for Honda. So I was in a standard 600 alongside the likes of the late great, one of the absolute legends, Kyle Harris, on a 750. And then everybody else was on 1000cc, and I was the only one on a 600. So we finished I think about 8th in the championship. But the following year, we did it again with Young Guns in 2000 on a Honda. Actually won the championship. And then I did it again in 2001 with a private team on a Suzuki. I won the championship again. And then 2002, on the back of that, I got my first paid factory Kawasaki ride, Kawasaki Supersport. So we did that 2002. The team sort of collapsed because the team manager left, Harold Eckel left to go and do MotoGP, and a French guy came and took over. So my 2-year contract then got torn up and turned into a 1-year contract. So I was left without a ride in 2003. And after Valencia, after the first round, all my sponsors clubbed together and said, look, we've missed you at Valencia this year. What can we do? So all my friends and sponsors chipped in, bought a bike from Suzuki. I went and picked it up from Paul Denning, brought it back, took the fairing off, got some local companies to paint it. I stickered it all up. Just built the bike up completely from help from people like Arrow, B&C Express, all the contacts that I've sort of gained through doing the championship. And I built this bike up in my friend's garage in Kendal, went off to the first round, qualified pole, and won the race in Monza. And then from then on, we carried on and finished third in the championship because obviously we missed the first round, but we were battling with the likes of Lanzi, Fabrizio. There was by that point, the European Championship had sort of exploded a little bit. So all the factory teams like All Star Suzuki, the Ducati factory team, they all had a separate Superstock team in there as well. So there was a lot of big names in there behind these guys, and it was me and a couple of my mates in a van that built a bike in Kendal and finished third in the championship. So that was a great year. And actually alongside that, I was doing the World Endurance Championship for Phase 1 in between all the races because I just stayed in Europe in the van and caravan. So I'd go from a Superstock race to a World Endurance race, and we ended up winning the World Endurance Championship as well in the same year. And then that was the year I came back to BSB in 2004. Raced for Genting Yamaha in the Privateer Championship and won the championship there as well.
It must have been a mega few years that traveling all around Europe, like loads of
yeah, it was absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm. Was there any particular favourite tracks or favourite places?
Monza. Whenever you got to Monza, I don't know if you've ever been before, it's just so historic. It's in the middle of a park in the centre of the city. It's weird. It's surrounded by walls, so you don't even know it's there. You drive 1 minute, you're driving around the city. The next thing you go through this little tunnel, through a gate, drive through this little park, and then all of a sudden there's a massive circuit there. Obviously, the old Monza is just a big oval, so you've got what they call the parabolica, the big banked, where they used to have obviously the race cars and bikes around there, and then you've got this amazing circuit in the middle of it. But just the whole atmosphere when you drove in there, it was just, I don't know what it was about it. It was just electric. It was amazing. I'd say there and Misano are my two favourite tracks.
You must have had some bloody parties out there, mate. You know, the thing is, it's not just the races, is it? It's not just the two wheels and the petrol and revving, you know what I mean? There must have been some crack off the scene around.
Too busy. There was a couple, but I was too busy stripping my bike down in a van. I literally lived in the first year I did it, certainly in 2000. I had a transit van that I kitted out with boards. I had my bike in the back, toolbox and everything, and I had this other flat boards above the bike, like kind of, it was a high top transit, and I had a pillow and a sleeping bag on the top, so I sleep in the van in between all the races, at the races, and then after the race weekend, certainly we'd normally keep Misano as like our little central hub. Whether you had a race in Germany, Spain, wherever it was, we always went back to Misano. Met up with, I say we, like Andy Knockman used to travel around with us when he raced. So there was always a couple of us that used to travel around together. And we'd park up at a campsite and then just work on the bikes, get the tent out. I was doing all the valve timing and everything. It was just incredible. But yeah, I mean, of course we had a bit of a party sometimes, but the majority of the time I was just working on my bike and training really. But just travelling around and seeing all the sights, it was just incredible. You know, I spent so much time in Italy. Absolutely love the place.
And then obviously after your time going back to BSB in 2004, you then went to the MotoGP, obviously the elite championship in the world for 2 years. How did you find your time in, traveling the world doing MotoGP?
Very busy. I can't believe the calendar's getting even busier now. Literally all you do is travel and ride bikes. And it is, don't get me wrong, it's incredible, but the position I was in, I wasn't on machinery that, I could run at the front. So it was kind of, once the novelty had worn off, it was kind of really, really difficult, if I'm completely honest, because you were turning up to the race, and as you can, if you just listen back to what we've been talking about, that it's like winning this and winning that and doing this and standing on the podium here and blah. And all of a sudden you're like turning up knowing you're not going to finish any higher than 15th if you're lucky. So it was a complete mindfuck, if I'm honest. It was really hard to deal with after a while, because you would turn up to these race weekends still fully committed, and if not more committed than you were before, and more determined, doing more work, and the reward just wasn't there. Okay, it's MotoGP, but like I say, once that sort of kudos is gone, you're riding around sort of mid-pack towards the back and not really achieving anything. Just always chasing that goal, hoping that somebody will say, right, well, he's on that bike and he's on these tyres, maybe if we give him this, he'll get those. But at that time, the Brits weren't really getting a break. You had Tozen there, which was obviously great. Hodgson had a great opportunity, but again, Hodgson was never on, top equipment. It's only in recent years, like now with the Crutchlows and, those boys, they've been given that opportunity now to ride good bikes and been able to prove that the British talent is one of the best there is in the world. But like I say, back then it wasn't that. It was almost like a privilege to allow you into GP. So yeah, it was a difficult time, but it was life changing, but it was very difficult sometimes.
And then obviously over to America for the AMA Championship. How did you manage? Did someone take you out there, or what was the link with America?
No, actually, I spoke to somebody just before the last one at Valencia. While I was still racing MotoGP, it was the WCM team that I was riding for. They were folding. That was going back another year. The WCM team I was riding for was folding. Then I got the Tech 3 Yamaha job, which was just a tyre development job at the time. So we were the only sort of team. Us and Pramac were the only team on Dunlop tyres. So we did that year in 2006. And towards the end of that year, Sylvain Guintoli, who was then our test rider, even though I was quicker than him at all the testing we were doing, he got my ride the following year. So obviously I was left without a contract, and I knew this leading up to the end of the season, that Sylvain was going to be stepping in and sort of taking my ride for 2007. So the final few rounds of the year, I was busy kind of looking for work, and my manager at the time, which was Bobby Moore, who now looks after Crutchlow at the minute, he's American, and he had contact from a team in America, Corona Honda, looking for a rider. And when he mentioned my name, I'm like, wow, yeah. So they flew out there. The team manager from the Corona Honda team in America flew to Valencia to have a meeting with me. And then we kind of signed the contract at Valencia really in the last round, and that was it. So I went and did that in 2007.
Right. I was actually wondering I was speaking to a guy down at the bike show this weekend, and they were telling us about Kawasaki. Put a big financial reward up for AMA. I think quite a few of the top teams have pulled out, like Yoshimura and Honda and a few others. And Kawasaki have sort of seen it as an opportunity to have a real good go at the AMA, and they've put massive prize money up for all the classes. And I was going to ask you if you've had any contacts over there, and if that interests you racing back in the AMA.
It does interest me, to be honest with you. I mean, that would be ideal if I could race over in America this year, and that's another reason, one of the main reasons really, why I didn't commit to a full year in BSB. But there's just no rides over there at the minute, and there's certainly no rides that will pay a decent wage. If I could get a team together, it's too late now, but if I could have got a team together to commit and race over there with even if it's a Supersport bike, Kawasaki. It potentially could have been quite a good earner, but it still would have cost a lot of money to run a team. So yeah, it's something I'll certainly be continuing to work towards, and maybe a plan for next year. But I mean, both of my kids are over in America, so I'm desperate to get over there at the minute. But with my whole visa situation, I can spend 3 months of the year there, and that's it. So it's really, really difficult being away from them. Which is one of the reasons, well, the main reason why I said I was leaving BSB a few years ago when people thought I was retiring. I just said, look, I'm not spending another year away from my kids. So yeah, it's on a personal basis. I'm not going to go into it, but yeah, it's a really difficult time for me at the minute because obviously I'm trying to get to see my kids. I'm going through a divorce at the minute, which is difficult, which makes things very, very difficult, in fact. And yeah, so doing the AMA would be a great opportunity for me to get over there and try and get established and try and get a base over there so I can, be with the kids.
Have you heard of this Kawasaki prize money thing?
Yeah, it was 15 grand for a win, apparently.
Bloody hell.
Well, Brad shared it on his Facebook, Brad Clark.
Hang up the phone, James. Hang up the phone, get a flight, go make some money, son. They are bloody hell.
I know. The thing is, unless you've got a team there that are going to obviously fund it, you know what it's like. Tyre bill, it's gone, isn't it? Tyre bill's gone, your fuel bill, the travel. America, we're not talking like we're going from Donington Park to Silverstone here. Bearing in mind, I've done America before, and I drove to most of the tracks, and it's like 2 or 3 days. It wasn't 2 or 3 hours from Silverstone to Donington. It was 2 or 3 day drive.
Jesus. So you want to take that trans back out from back in the day? They are full of red. Off you go, son. Make a phone.
That thing was amazing.
So you can get the lad out of Kendall, Chrissy, but you can't get Kendall out of the lad, can you? You know what I mean? Philip, right?
Stay grounded. It doesn't matter who you are. Honestly, I'd do that again. If I had the budget, right now I've got absolutely zero money. If I had the budget, I'd do it myself again, in America if I had to, but just haven't got the funding there to do it. And potentially, yeah, like you say, if you go out there and do well, then there is, a potential to make a living out of it. But I just couldn't afford to do it. I'd have to get signed up by somebody, or at least have help from someone. And I just don't know enough contacts in America at the minute to do that. And most of the teams, which is what I think is amazing about the American Championship, AMA, is they're very loyal. If they're signing you for 2 years, you're with them for 2 years. Doesn't matter what your results are, you are with them for 2 years, and they'll work with you. So a lot of the guys do sign 2-3 year contracts, and they're tied in with it. So it just makes it very, very difficult for an outsider, certainly someone from England, to come in and steal a ride that could go to an American. So yeah, it's kind of just knowing the right people, and I don't know the right people over there at the minute.
Well, we'll get a fair few downloads from the USA on the podcast, so you never know. You never know. We've got a bit of a habit of jobs.
Can we officially start a GoFundMe page right now? Get James over to America in the Kawasaki Championship. People to invest. I'll give them some money back when we win it.
Yeah.
I tell you, there'll be someone actually out there now. That's a midnight idea. Let's get this hooked up. There's a great business opportunity.
I've never really taken much notice of the racing out in America. What's the? Obviously, I've seen Tony Elias there the last few years. He's kind of been dominating. What's the the standard like? What's the tracks like? Is there much?
The tracks are great. Everyone was before I went over, people saying, "Oh my god, I can't believe you go to AMA. The tracks are crazy. There's walls here and there's this there and blah blah." Like, dude, have you ever been to Cadwell Park on a superbike? Nothing is sketchy compared to that. So I kind of went over there expecting these mad sort of like, I don't know, Wild West circuits covered in sand and lampposts and brick walls everywhere. And do you know what? I loved them all. Loved every single one of them. Especially Road Atlanta. Road Atlanta and Road America were my two favourites. But yeah, it's just the tracks are great, and obviously the quality of riders is. You've got Tony Elise out there. And you say he's dominating. He didn't win every single race. They certainly made him work for it.
Yeah.
Josh Herring, Cameron Beaubier, Gerloff. All the guys there, massive talents. So yeah, the quality of riders there. It's just the manufacturers aren't there to back it, and now we've had at least another one manufacturer pull out. It's just crazy. I thought it was kind of on its way up, and it was just about to start getting back to where it was sort of pre 2007. Before it was really when we had the sort of economic crisis over in England, when all the property prices dropped and everyone started panicking and stopped buying stuff, and all the manufacturers in 2008 pulled out of AMA, and that was it. It kind of just collapsed from there. And it kind of the last couple of years, once Motor America took it over, they've rebranded it all. They're on Facebook all the time and Instagram and Twitter. They're a lot more current than they were back then. And they're getting the riders like Eliasin and Gerloff and Beaubier, and it was just starting to pick up again. And I thought, right, this is it. Maybe next year or two we're going to be there. Just needs one more big name, and if Spies could have come back, something like that. One more big name, and all the manufacturers might have gone, right, this is it. We can do it now. And then it's just again taken another collapse because people have backed out. So it's crazy because I really enjoyed my years there, and they've got a massive fan base. They don't have many people turn up at the tracks because everything's so far away. But the fan base over there is huge. So yeah, I don't get it. I don't get why the manufacturers started to pull out of it just when it was starting to pick up. Which is why Kawasaki have jumped in now and gone, right, this is it, perfect opportunity. Let's attack it. Because they'll start dominating and everyone will go out and buy Kawasaki's, which is exactly what racing's about.
Well, I'm sure, if they're putting that sort of cheese up for the wins, then there'll be plenty of people. Like, that's a good incentive for people to get involved. And like people in other domestic championships that might not be really earning a living, if they can, get a team sorted out there, and even if you were like splitting the prize money, you could still earn a decent wedge.
How much do you earn at BSB? Like at a win? You know what I mean? If they're banging out 15 grand per win in America, how much are they banging out over here?
The prize money
Big prize money. Hold on, there's no prize money in Superbikes.
Nothing.
You get free, but no prize money.
I tell you what, there's going to be a few spare seats in BSB after this interview, isn't there? Jesus, I'm telling you. Isn't there? Jesus, I want to get off over to America.
Honestly, it's crazy. It really is crazy. It used to be. So on privateers, I don't mind sharing this information. For privateer championship, obviously I wasn't earning any money. I wasn't on a wage. But the team, I was riding for free, and the team allowed me to keep the prize money. And it was just for the privateers. This is not Superbikes. Just for the privateers, it was £2,000 a win. So I can't remember if it was £1,000 a race win and £2,000 obviously if you did the double. Yeah, I think it was actually. So it was £1,000 a win. So if you did the double, you came away from the weekend with £2,000. And so you could keep going. And that's the thing with the AMA now. With Kawasaki coming in with all this prize money, this contingency, it allows talent that maybe would never have even had the opportunity to show what they could do. It allows them to come out of the woodwork and go, do you know what? I'm going to build a bike and go race. And then you've got all these new names coming in that no one would have ever heard of because they couldn't afford to do it. And they weren't well known enough to get established and signed with a well-known team, and they went off and did an electrician's job or a builder's job because they didn't have that opportunity to go racing and show what they can do. But when you've got that contingency, that prize money there, it gives people the opportunity to come in and go, do you know what, I can actually do this, and if I do really well, I'll make a bit of a living out of it. I can go to the next race, I can afford to pay the tyre bill, and then before you know it, a year, 2 years down the line, you sign with a factory team. So I think it's a great idea. I really do.
It's not just the Superbike class they're putting the prize money up for as well. Even
the
Supersport 400s for the kids. I think is it like $5,000?
Yeah. It's every class, yeah.
I'm not sure.
You'd have to read up on it, but there is some articles out there. If you just Google Kawasaki contingency money AMA, I'm sure you'll be able to see loads of stuff on Google. But there's, I think in every classes, I think they're either going down to 10th place or 15th. So it's not just. You don't have to just go out there and finish top 3. You can go out there and, run a top 10, top 15 and still earn a bit of money out of it.
Right. Well, and back to your career, and obviously after the AMA, you headed back over to BSB for a bit. This was a sort of time when I started racing, and I started to take more interest in the what was happening in BSB and like watch and stuff. And I remember there's been numerous years really where you've started off the season as like one of the title contenders. You've led the championship. And then through no fault of your own, like either through there was that time where you broke your leg and whatever, some things always seem to like get in your way of a good, strong campaign. And you've been very unlucky over some years. Riding for Sean Muir, I remember, was it Thruxton when you broke your leg?
Yeah, that was like the third year I was back in BSB, so that was 2010. Mm-hmm. Again, we were second in the championship. It was only the second round. It was the first round. I think I was third in race 1 and I won race 2 at Brands. Tommy Hill had a first and a second, so I was second in the championship. We went to Thruxton. I led Friday FP1, FP2. These are all in the history books, so everyone wants to look. But led FP1, FP2. Led Saturday morning, and then Saturday afternoon, I think it was. And I set a time of 2:14, which nobody beat all weekend while I was lying in hospital. But Saturday afternoon, I think it was, Kean Ari, his bike had blown up, and he pulled off the side of the track to the inside. And the flags were out, but you know what it's like around. I think it was Village Corner. You know how fast it is around there. You're more or less pinned in fourth gear. So this little white flag waving, I'm not focusing on that. All I'm trying to do is focus on where to be on track. And I just as I looked at it out of the corner of my eye, my front end folded, and he'd literally just blown up. There was no smoke. It literally just chucked oil out everywhere. So I kind of peeled into church and the front folded. So it was a really gentle crash, but obviously very, very high speed. And because it wasn't the race day, there was no airbags or tyre wall or anything. I literally went exactly like a motorway steel Armco. I went straight into it side on. My leg came round, femur snapped in half, and I kicked myself in the face. I had half my femur sticking out my leathers, and I was like, well, that's that fucked. So, yeah,
it's common that. Yeah, well, that's stuff there.
I just saw a hole in my leathers, and I kind of put my hand underneath my leg onto my hamstring, and I lifted my leg up to see if everything was all right. And this bone came sticking out. I was like, well, that's not good. So yeah, it wasn't a pleasant experience.
Jesus,
but that was we've skipped 2 years, but I don't want to bore anybody. But yeah, when we came back to England after AMA in 2007, I did obviously 2008. Just missed out on the showdown first year back in BSB with Sean Muir. And 2009, I had great success with GSE racing on the Yamaha, finished second in the championship behind Camille. Quite a few wins, and then obviously 2010. So this was like, right, I've just finished second in the championship in 2009. Going to 2010, feeling strong. Just won. Finished third in race 1, won race 2 at Brands. Went to Thruxton. Smashed Friday, smashed Saturday. Confidence was super high, and then just had this stupid little crash with no fault of my own, and my season's gone. So it was just it was a massive kick in the balls. We worked so hard, and I thought, this is it. This is our year. Felt great on the bike. The team were all behind me. I'd worked with all the guys before. Mick Shanley was my crew chief again. So everything was just fitting into place. And then for that to happen, it was just soul destroying, honestly.
I bet. I remember that. At the beginning of each season, me and my dad always used to have a £1 bet on who was going to take the championship. And I'm pretty sure I had you for, I fancied you for the championship that year. And obviously, like you say, started out so promising, but, through some shitty little incident that, out of your control. But that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes.
It's racing. I'm not complaining about it. It's just, we all know what we're getting into, don't we? But yeah, it was a difficult start to that year. And because of that, and because I was so confident, I was still at it in my head that I could win the championship. So I was flat out over in the Isle of Man in the Hyperbike Chamber. It was literally the day after that. I was Robin Croft, who was a good friend of mine, a good sponsor. He drove me out to the Isle of Man. Literally the day I was out of hospital, which was 2 days after the crash. And then I spent the week there recovering with the femur injury, trying to get back fit again. Lived in a camper with Simon Andrews for 3 weeks over in the Isle of Man. We literally went to the Hyperbike Chamber every single day, in the morning, in the afternoon, and physio in between. And then that was 3 weeks. And then week 4, I checked myself into the Penrith Firefighters Rehabilitation Centre, so it's like a 24-hour service. It's for the firefighters. It's funded by a charity, so we obviously have to pay for it. But paid for that. Stayed there for a week in Penrith. So week 3. So I was back mountain biking. Week 4, I was back on a motorbike at Mallory Park, running within a couple of tenths of what I'd done there before. And in week 5, I was back on the grid at Knockhill. And we managed to sort of, fight through the championship that year and win a race again at the end of it, Silverstone. But we didn't, obviously. I think we finished 6th in the championship that year. It was too late to fight for it, but we certainly give it our best shot.
I still a mega effort. And then following on from that, back to MotoGP. It's like your career's like a yo-yo, in it, just here, there, and there.
2010. I fell out with the championship in 2010 because actually, and this isn't any fault of Stuart Higgs. So if he's listening to this, we've made up since then. But I did have a bit of a fallout with him and the doctors because I was told this week 6 I was back on the race on the grid. Week 5, I should have been back on the grid at Cadwell Park, but they wouldn't allow me to race. So I was told if I brought a letter from the doctor saying that my bone was strong enough to ride, I could race at Cadwell, or at least attempt to race. And it was at that time, it was that we've not done it since then, but for 1 year when we did the shootout thing, the first year they did it, you could actually drop your worst round. So you get to the end of the season and you could drop your worst point scoring round. So it was very complicated. So they didn't do it again. But anyway, I was going to use that as my worst point scoring round. So all I had to do was get on the grid, set off, cross the line for a couple of laps, and then pull in. And I could have counted that as a result. So anyway, I turned up there with the intention of racing at Cadwell, and I was told to do, she asked me to do like 20 one-legged squats on my broken femur. I was like, well, you don't do one-legged squats on a bike. I said, if you let me out on track, I've just been to Mallory Park and lapped all day within a few tenths of what I've done before. I'll show you that I can ride. And she wouldn't let me out. This is the head doctor. She wouldn't let me out on track until Stuart Higgs had given me the all clear. But Stuart Higgs wouldn't give me the all clear until the head doctor had seen me on track. So he wouldn't let me on track until she'd give me the all clear. It was just very, very complicated. So basically, she wanted to see me riding to say, right, you can go out on track and ride. But Stuart wouldn't let me on track to do that. So I kind of had a bit of a fallout through the whole championship that year. Like I say, we're over it now. We've made friends and me and Stuart actually get on really well. But after that year, I kind of fell out with it. I thought, right, I need something different. I need a different challenge. I got offered a World Supersport ride with Simon Buckmaster.
Yes.
It's a year after Eugene Laverty had raced there. And it was me and Sam Lowe's.
Yeah, I remember that.
What's that?
There was 4, but there was like 2 in some in yellow colours or something, and then 2 in red. Was it sponsored by Portimao Track or something?
Yeah, it was called Badanka. It was only the 2 of us though. It was the following year, I think you were thinking about. They had a few bikes out there. It was just me and Sam that year. And Kieran Clark came in for a few rounds to do the super stock. We had Pavel Skolpek as well. He was on board on the 3rd bike. So we had 3 Supersport bikes out there. But again, it was another year where I rode for no wages. Absolutely 0 wages from the team. I've had a great sponsor, very, very, very good friend of mine now, Simon Watley from SRS Rail. So he's been, paying me a regular, or sponsoring me a regular wage for, the last 10 years monthly. And that was the only thing that I had, to get me through that year. So it was a very difficult one. We got prize money from Supersport, so that was keeping me going. We had a sponsor that was helping pay for fuel. But it was another very, very lean year where I wasn't getting much, and I was finishing on the podium in World Supersport. So it was, it was another tough one. Everyone just sees on the outside that you go and racing bikes and think you live this $1 million lifestyle and everything's gravy and you're just dicking about. But it's very, very hard at times. It's very difficult. So and it's hard to enjoy it sometimes as well because of that, because you're constantly thinking about where the next bill's coming from, and yeah, it's tough. But I've been lucky enough to have a great group of friends and sponsors behind me that whenever things have got really difficult, I've still been able to carry on racing and still been able to dig ourselves out of that hole. And it's just through sheer support of everybody else. So yeah, by doing that year in Supersport, it was actually lucky we did it, because we did the Supersport year, and then towards the end of that year, a lot of people might remember this, 2011, John Hopkins and Tommy Hill, final race at Brands Hatch, fighting for the championship. Whoever won Yeah, whoever won the championship. Anyone who hasn't seen it, go onto Google, onto YouTube, and Google best ever British Superbike race, and that'll come up. Tommy Hill and John Hopkins. Now, the reason I've gone on to that is because 2011, obviously doing Supersport, I got offered to do the last couple of rounds for SMT because they were struggling developing their Honda with the electronics, and they asked me to step in for a couple of races. And I ended up. What's that?
Was that Alec running the bike that year?
It was, yeah. Yeah, Alec Tate was my crew chief. Dan Linfoot was running it for most of the year, but they didn't really get inside the top 15 very often. So they
was a white bike with a bit of red.
It was what?
It was a white bike with a bit of red on it.
That was it, yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
SMT, that was it. So anyway, he gave me the opportunity to do the last couple of rounds, and we got the bike set up at Alton Park and got a few gremlins out of it, set the electronics, the fueling again. Mick Shanley stepped in and helped out with that. Got the bike running great. Next thing you know, the next round, the Brands Arch were running at the front, leading the two guys that battled for a championship behind me, and ended up sandwiching in between the two of them for the whole race. And once both of them had got past, I kind of wanted. Actually, I won't tell you I wanted to win the championship, but anyway, once both of them had got past me, I just sat there and watched the whole race, and it was absolutely amazing. I had the best seat in the house, and we ended up walking away with a third place trophy for SMT, and they're only, their first trophy in Base B. So, but the reason I got onto that, is because of that race, Paul Bird was watching it. He was currently building the bikes for MotoGP for the CRT Championship. Discussing riders. He saw that race and said, right, I want him on the bike, and that was it. So I got contacted by Paul's team to go to MotoGP for 2012.
Going back to that race, I remember watching, and obviously the last lap when all the overtakes were happening, it looked a bit like you could have passed, you could have definitely made a move and think, but obviously it would have been getting involved with like the greatest sort of last lap in history, and obviously them fighting for the championship. And it kind of looked like you just sort of you held the group up behind you and just sort of sat there enjoying the spectacle.
Yeah, do you know what? It was a really, really difficult. Once it got past, it was really difficult for me because I kind of felt allegiance with Tommy because he's a good friend. I felt allegiance with Hopper because he's a good friend. So I was like, I can't pick who I want to win this championship. But Mick Shanley, leading up to that race, he had spent 6 or 7 hours on the dyno on that SMT bike. Bearing in mind, he was Yamaha at the time. He spent, obviously, Sean Muir Racing Performance. They develop a lot of bikes up there anyway, so there was no contractual, clashes or anything. But Mick, as a friend, had spent 6 or 7 hours refueling this bike and remapping it from the information we got from Alton Park, and just made it so crisp to ride that I was like, right, well, if I get in front of Hopper, I'll hold it up. But then all of a sudden, I'm with both of them. I'm like, well, shit, what do I do here? And then the next thing, obviously, I'm riding for Robin Croft. So I'm like, well, I don't want to sit back and let these two guys go away when I think I can beat them. But because it was the second race, I'd already got the podium for Robin in the first race. Once Tommy Hill got past me, I thought, right, I'm just going to sit behind him, not pass him, and then just see what happens. And then Hopper just made this lunge going up onto the back straight, which I wasn't expecting. So then once he got past, I thought, right, I'm just going to sit here now. And then obviously Michael started closing in. So I'm like, damn it, I've got Michael behind me now. I don't want to let him pass, but I don't want to get past the other guys because I don't want to get involved in their championship. So it was really, really difficult. And if you look on the video, the very, very last lap, I went up the inside. I think Hopper must have run a little bit deep, and I had the opportunity to just open the throttle and sit in between him and Tommy Hill. And I just had to roll off. You'll see it on the video. It was the final corner. I was like, look, I cannot get involved in this. I would have got absolutely mobbed by one of their fan clubs going out of that circuit. I probably wouldn't have come out alive if I'd have, affected it. But yeah, it was just an amazing race. You could just feel the adrenaline and the emotion of both of them, especially once we crossed the line, because they both wanted it and both deserved it so bad. You could literally feel it, and to be able to watch every single lap of it was amazing.
Yeah, I think that was definitely the best last race of the season. Gotta be. For I presume in BSB history, but it's definitely the best of the recent era, if you could say that.
Yeah.
I guess. Then obviously you talked about going to MotoGP on the CRT bike. It was kind of on the Paul Bird bike. It was 2 years of obviously the CRT bikes weren't competitive enough to be running with the top bikes. but you had a sort of championship of your own, which was it was a battle every weekend. And that 2-year stretch ended with 2 really good results, 2 9th places. And I remember the very last race that you had on the bike, you actually beat a certain Mr. Valentino Rossi at Valencia. How would you sum up your 2 years in MotoGP?
Yeah, well, no, that year it was only 1 year. It was 2012. I mean, I shook hands with Birdie for it to be minimum 2 or 3 year deal because I knew it was going to be a challenge developing the bike, and I didn't want to do 1 year, develop it, and then disappear for someone else to come in and get better results on a more developed bike. So, yeah, it was a bit frustrating having to leave after 1 year, but I thought we did great. A brand new bike. We had a lot of sort of teething issues. One of the biggest problems was gearbox. Used to jump out of gear so many times. You see a lot of the races I'll just run on, and it's because the gearbox was locked up. Like I say, it was a brand new bike, so we had a lot of issues with it. But when it was working, I think we had some great results with it. We had some brilliant races with the likes of Petrucci. They were my normal regular guys that I was racing with Petrucci, Colin Edwards, what's his name? Michele Pirro. So some big names in there, and we finished 4th in the championship, I think, out of I think it was 9 or 10 CRT bikes in total. So I think we did all right, and we won our class at Le Mans. I think we had a great year for a first year. I actually scored the year after that. Birdie ran Lavity for the next 2 years, and it was the Colombian. He was a Colombian guy. There was Brock Parks, Lavity, and Hernandez. So over those 2 years with those 3 riders, I still scored more points in that 1 year in the CRT. So I think we had a pretty strong first year. But obviously Birdie didn't, and then that was it for the end of 2012. But the final round at Valencia was great to beat Rossi in that race fair and square. It was a bit of a mixed race. It started off wet. We all did like 1 lap and then everyone pulled into pits at the same time, went back out on slicks. So it was this constantly drying track. And I remember catching Rossi and I was like, has he got a bit of an issue? I thought, no, he hasn't. We're just sort of chipping away at him. And then I passed him. And then like a lap later, the blue flag came out and I turned around and it was Rossi. So I was like, well, he's not coming past me. So I just kept my head down and we managed to pull away from him. So claim to fame. Do
you think that was a Rossi fan as the marshal just trying to get him?
Get him reeled back in?
Probably, yeah.
And I remember it was Lorenzo who had that mega high side. That was just next to you.
And this is exactly why, because that blue flag came out, and then I saw it again another 2 laps later, and I went, no, fuck you. That's Rossi. I passed him already. So I just stayed on line, and I was racing. Obviously, Lorenzo was leading the race. Got a little bit frustrated seeing me in front, and instead of kind of waiting until he got around that corner and then just blasting past, because the bikes are way faster, I think he just got a little bit keen. Went into the corner, went to go around the outside of me, and of course there's like a dry line about a foot wide, so he went straight onto the wet track and high-sided. So I got absolutely bombarded by the Spanish fan club telling me that they were going to kill me, they were going to kill my mum. I was like, oh my God, get all these death threats off everyone. And the first thing I did when I got off track, even though I knew technically it wasn't really my fault because I was still just racing my own race online, and he was miles in front of anyone, so he could have just waited till the start-finish straight if he wanted to, but even just the next corner. So anyway, first thing he did was went to his garage to try and find him to apologise, but he wasn't there. So I went to see Erta, said, look, can you get hold of him? I need to, go and see him and just apologise to him. But by the time we actually got to talking, it was at the end of season party, a few hours later, and he actually came up to me and shook my hand and apologised for his fans having a go at me. He said, look, I was just a little bit frustrated at the time. He said, I know it wasn't your fault, so, we're cool. Shook my hand, gave me a hug, and that was it. So, we've got on ever since. So it wasn't my fault. That's all I'm saying. I'm sticking to it.
And then obviously over recent years, back in BSB, last year with the starting with the Smiths Racing BMW team as Peter Hickman's teammate, obviously things didn't really go to plan. Would you like to shed any light on like what was obviously within racing? Lots of things are going on behind the scenes, and people might not know what's happening.
Politics involved. Yeah, there's a lot of politics involved that I won't go into, but we just didn't see eye to eye, and we ended up sort of parting ways halfway through the season, which left me with nothing really. But I wasn't getting the results, I didn't deserve to sort of keep the ride, but there was reasons for that. Part of the reason I was carrying an injury from the year before that, 2018, the final round with the Tag Yamaha. I sort of broke my back at the end, the final few laps of the last race. I didn't realise what had happened. I high-sided in the wet, just as I caught the leading group, landed smack on my spine, and two vertebrae had squashed together so hard that it literally popped my disc out, and your disc's like a soft membrane. So it popped out of this membrane and it crushed against my spinal cord. So for like the next 3 days, I was walking around in agony thinking I just trapped a nerve, and went to see my chiropractor at Core Clinics in Warwick. And I walked in and he literally looked at me and said, "What have you done? Tell me your symptoms." And I told him, and he knew straight away what disc was protruding. And he said, "You've got to get to hospital now." And sent me straight to Coventry Hospital. And within 2 hours, I was on an operating table having my disc cut out. But by that time, I'd already done all the damage. So I've even got it still now. All my right down my left-hand side of my leg is all numb. If you stand on your tiptoes, you'll see you've got like two calf muscles. I've only got one on one side because all the nerves damaged down there. But it obviously damaged quite a lot, and it affected my feeling in my hands as well. So for that year coming into, I had 3 months where I literally couldn't do anything. It was a massive, massive operation, and they said if I'd left it another half a day, I'd have lost the use of my leg permanently, and my bowel and my bladder. So it was a very, very serious operation. And then since then, I've had another operation with some stem cells to get injected into the spine to repair it, which has helped it again. But it was just a long recovery. The doctor was saying, "Look, it's going to be over a year before you're back to full fitness again." And typical racing, like, "Yeah, I'll cut that down to 3 weeks. I'll be fine." So, I was doing all the usual stuff, trying to train and exercise and get back to strength. And I felt great. But on the bike, I was starting to get this numbness in my hands. I literally couldn't feel my hands when I was braking. And I was changing things on the handlebars, trying to get to the bottom of what it was. We put, trying to stop this vibration, which was causing this. It wasn't an arm pump, it was just literally, eventually my hands would I wouldn't be able to squeeze. I didn't have any strength in it. So I struggled with that all year, and I was kind of putting it down to the vibration in the bike. So we kept changing stuff on it, trying different bits. Some things would actually help it. And it wasn't until I got to Suzuka Right Hour, raced for the Myerscough Yamaha team, and obviously jumped on a different motorcycle on a Yamaha. Spent 6 days riding. I did 5 out of the 8 hours of the endurance race, and I didn't have one issue with it. So it was kind of a combination with the inherent vibration from the BMW, and this nerve damage was just causing these issues with my arms, where I just literally couldn't do more than 1 or 2 laps without losing the feeling in it. Whereas on any other bike, I was fine. So for whatever reason, it was just a really difficult year, and we fell out with each other, and that was it, really.
And obviously, like in the last sort of year, you've taken like quite a lot of flack on social media and whatever, with stuff to do with like away from the racing. And obviously, in this day and age with like Twitter and social media and everything, everyone's got an opinion on everything. And even though when people don't know the facts or really like what's happening, would you like to sort of take this opportunity to put the record straight for the keyboard warriors and
Yeah, no, not really, because it's my personal life and it's my business. People can say what they want. All I'd say is just stay out of it. People online, if you don't know what's going on, then just do not comment. There was one guy that gave me a bit of shit the other day for something, and he got the total wrong end of the stick, but it caused this whole argument with people that thought that he was telling the truth. So I did private message him and explain to him actually what had happened, and then he apologised, and then apologised publicly on Twitter as well. But I'm not just going to continue doing that and putting out my dirty laundry on social media. But if people do get offensive to myself or my loved ones, then I will send them a private message and say, "Hey, hang on a minute, mate, just back off. That's not how it is. Here's a little bit of what's going on." So all I say is just for racing fans especially, just keep it about racing. That's it. My personal life is my personal life. People can judge me for what they want. I am going through a few issues at the minute, but it's my private life. All I'd say is just ask people to stay out of it, because if you know me, and if you're my family, if you're my friends, you know exactly what's going on. And if you don't know me, you don't need to know.
Well said, mate. Well said. At the end of the day, you're a professional athlete, and that's how you should treat every professional athlete, even if you did water polo, golf, or whatever. So, exactly. No, fair play. Totally fair play.
Well, especially, you bring it up now with what's happened in the last couple of days. You can see how powerful social media is and what it does to people behind the scenes. It's some people on there, mate, are disgusting, and I want to walk around to the house and just wring the neck, but you can't do that. You just got to. They're obviously bored. They've got nothing to do today. I don't know them. They obviously don't know me, so they don't deserve a response. So the majority of the time, I'll just stay out of it.
Yeah, fair play.
We were actually talking about this the other day, me and Dom, saying if we weren't bike racers and sort of using social media for with the racing, we'd probably come off altogether. And looking at like you say in recent news, looking at the social media has obviously got loads of pros, but it does have a lot of cons on the same.
At the end of the day, like you're saying, if you've got an opinion, just keep it to yourself. You know what I mean? Have a crack at the pub and, that's good. But when you start putting it on a public platform, you know what I mean? There's something bloody wrong with you. But at the end of the day,
everyone's got a right opinion. But a lot of these guys on here, they'll come in and just publicly attack you with a load of abuse that is complete lies because they've heard little snippets and they think it's true. And it's like, yeah, you've got a right for your opinion, but you're, bombarding with all this stuff now and basically saying that it's all true. It's not, and I'm not prepared to sit there and explain to every single one of them that that's not how it is, because it's my life, it's my family's life, and it's nothing to do with them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm looking at the time then, we've run over the hour, so I think on that note, we'll just say a huge thank you to you for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your time out in South Africa, and obviously all the very best for the 2020 season, whatever you get up to.
See you in Northern Ireland.
See you over. Well, maybe we're raking in the sheets.
Yeah, a pint of Guinness.
You what, sorry?
I said we'll see you for a pint of Guinness, my round.
We're going to the anchor, young'un. Forget the armband. We're coming in the deep end.
All the best, and I'll catch up with you sometime soon, mate. Thanks very much.
Right. Thank you, guys. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers, sir.